Autumn, do we test?
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here. We'll have about a 10-minute delayed start as we work through some technical issues.
It's on my radar. It's totally. We did do the presentation.
Yeah, I saw it. We'll at least spend 10 minutes talking about how do we want to make a list of how those sort of
Audio test 1 2 3. Audio test 1 2 3. Joan Fredrickson, can you hear me? If you can you please unmute and respond?
Joan is right here.
Joan, I see you're online. Could you unmute and see if we can hear you? Please, and can you do that out in the hallway, please? Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Can you talk one more time, please?
Yes, I'm speaking. Do you need me to turn my volume up?
Perfect. I can hear you just fine. Thank you so much. Okay,
that's it.
everyone will be
Great.
ready in just a couple more minutes. Thank you for your patience.
Welcome, everyone, to our December 16th edition of the Portland Planning Commission. I'll be your chair, Steph Routh, and it is 4:04, and we are gonna come to order. And I would like, since there's so many of you, first of all, thank you all for being here. We're really excited to hear from everyone today. A tiny bit of housekeeping. There are, we might have one, we'll look to have one break, about 5 to 10 minutes, about halfway through. If you have a bathroom needs, there are bathrooms up here and also on the first floor. So there we are. I would love to invite my colleagues to share their name and what district or neighborhood they're from. Ruben, you wanna? Sorry.
Test. Okay. My name is Ruben Alvarado. I live in the Foster Powell neighborhood, District 3.
Hi, I'm David Knowles, and I live in the Beaumont, Wilshire neighborhood.
Sure. My name is Eli Spivak, and I live in Cully in the District 2.
I'm Erica Thompson. I'm in District 3, barely. I'm in Northeast near McDaniel High School.
Hi, everyone. Mary Rain O'Mara. I live in District 3 in the Brentwood-Darlington neighborhood.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucas Pollock, and I live in District 3 in the South Tabor neighborhood.
Hi, everyone. My name's Dreisha Brannon. I live in Hazelwood, District 1.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Ames, and I work in Lair Hill.
Great. And I live in Lentz, District 1 from Park Rose. We're going to start. We're going to have a director's report from our director, Patricia Diefendorfer. We'll go through the consent agenda. We're going to then invite staff up for a very brief recap of the CEI Hub project, and then we'll get right into testimony. Okay, so first of all, before we go, any items of interest from commissioners? Okay, great. I'd love to kick it to Director Diefendorfer for the director's report.
Good afternoon. Sorry, Chair Routh, I was just trying to make sure, do we have consent agenda or minutes that we have to approve?
Yes, after this.
Oh, after this, pardon me. Sorry, I'm the one out of order, pardon me. Okay, for the record, Patricia Diefenderfer. I'm the Chief Planner in the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and thank you for commissioners for your service and for being here this evening. So very quickly, I just have a very few items for the director's report. Wanted to update the commission to let you know that the proposed drafts of both the economic opportunities analysis and the Columbia Corridor and Industrial Lands Environmental Overlay Zone project were published last week on the 19th, so Friday. So those documents are now available for review on the BPS Long Range Planning website or the project websites. The map app is also open for those projects so that written testimony can be received on those projects in preparation for the upcoming hearing on those two items before this commission, which is going to be on Tuesday, January 13th. That meeting is going to begin a little bit early, much like this meeting. We're going to, the start time for that meeting will be 4 p.m. We will start with a briefing on the EOA, since our briefing from the last meeting got cut a little bit short. We'll do a briefing on the EOA, and then the hearing for both projects will start at 5 p.m. So that's kind of just an update on things to come, what's available for review and upcoming meetings. Wanted to also let the commission know you may have heard about a resolution at the City Council related to design review. And I just wanted to let you all know that on December 10th, City Council did adopt a resolution that basically directs staff to do some research and analysis and come back with a report on recommendations for how to kind of improve the design review process going forward. So we have 120 days to produce that report, and I'm sure we'll be updating you, and there'll be more to come on that topic, but I just wanted to make sure all the commissioners are aware of that development. And with that, I'm happy to hand it back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Diefenderfer. Now for the exciting consent agenda, which is composed entirely of our December 2nd meeting minutes.
I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Great. All in favor? Passing? Anyone opposed? Great. Okay. And now let's go to the main event, the Critical Energy Infrastructure CEI Hub Policy Project Hearing. And for that, would welcome BPS staff Tom Armstrong to join us. Thank you so much. And this is a public hearing. So we will hear a brief presentation from staff and then invite testimony. Thank you. Does anyone have any disclosures? Forgive me. Yeah, Commissioner Spivak. You did this to yourself. Yep.
I disclosed that I ate too soon. My partner works for 350 PDX on urban tree canopy things, and I've learned that 350 PDX is lobbying on this project. So I'm disclosing that, but I'm not a decision maker to recuse. Thanks.
And I will disclose that I've attended and presented at a few community meetings, including at League of Women Voters. It was entirely around engagement, but a few of those organizations have also engaged in this process. So, anyone else? Thank you for that call out, Commissioner Spivak. Okay, Tom, the floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Tom Armstrong. I'm a supervising planner at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and I use he, him pronouns. This evening, I'm just going to give you an overview of the proposal and what's in the proposal before you. The basics are we're asking you to adopt the CI Hub policy report. In that report, you will see we lost our presentation. There we go. You will see there are proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan, as well as amendments to Title 33, the Planning and Zoning chapter of the City Code. In addition to that, we are seeking your input on the proposed concepts to amend Title 17 to create a drawdown program, as well as the Title 24 building code changes. Again, we set out with this project. It was there's a wide range of issues in the critical energy infrastructure hub, emergency management and safety. And we were very focused on what we do, which is land use policy, and building off of the work that we did in the fossil fuel terminal zoning project. How can we build a stronger policy base and update our zoning code regulations as they relate to bulk fossil fuel terminals? We've also used this opportunity to work with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality and Portland State to convene an interagency group to talk about other emergency management issues as a sort of parallel development that goes with both our work on this code update and DEQ's work on the seismic stability program to just have a more coordinated response to the issues in the CI Hub. Again, as background, the CI Hub is a 6-mile stretch along the Portland Harbor in northwest Portland. It consists of 11 different bulk fuel terminals, 370 million gallons of capacity, storage tank capacity. And our existing regulatory approach, which was finally adopted in 2022, is we prohibit new bulk fuel terminals, those with more than 2 million gallons of capacity. And we limit the existing fuel terminals to the fossil fuel storage capacity levels that they had in place as of August of 2022. Within that, there are exceptions that allow for the unlimited expansion for aviation fuels and renewable fuels. And we also allow for the repair and replacement of the existing storage tanks. Our proposals then build off of that regulatory structure, and I'll go into some of the details here in a minute, but we are revising existing comprehensive plan policies and proposing a new set of policies that are specific to the CI Hub. And then we have some zoning code amendments that further regulate the capacity, the storage tank capacity in particular, but also the transloading capacity at the existing terminals. And then, as I said, we're looking at creating what we call a drawdown program to reduce that capacity over time. Speaking a little bit on the comprehensive plan policies, we have 2 changes to the existing comp plan policies. One is to policy 648 to really switch up, remove the definition or remove the reference to fossil fuels and expand that to bulk fuels to encompass the proposal of limiting and regulating all types of liquid or all types of fuel at these facilities. We also are proposing to delete the reference to those necessary to serve the regional market. Our experience over 3 rounds of appeals on the previous regulations is that it's very difficult to define what is the region that is served by the CI Hub. It encompasses a broad geography that not only is Portland, the Portland region, the state of Oregon, Eastern Washington, parts of Idaho. The data needed to compile to sort of figure out what that need, it just isn't there for that wide range of geographies. And so we are just focusing on the primary purpose is to limit these types of facilities in Portland. The other one is in policy 372, which is under our rivers pattern area section of the comp plan. where we have reference to enhancing various pieces of the economic infrastructure in the Portland Harbor. We're pulling the critical energy infrastructure reference out of this policy. And then in the new comprehensive plan policies, we're proposing a suite of policies that are specific to the critical energy infrastructure hub. We have a map, a new map to be added to the comp plan, figure 310, that defines what we mean by the critical energy infrastructure hub. And then, some policy direction that is specific to that. We have 7 different sub-policies to that that again, are designed to be very directive and specific to what's going on in the CI hub. We include policy 383C there, the economic significance that really takes what was in 372 and puts it and explicitly calls it out to recognize the important role that the hub plays in especially in supplying the liquid fuel that we need to support our economy and lifestyle. We have additional sub-policies to talk about environmental protection and energy transition, and it really forms a suite of policies that really get at all of the issues that we are trying to balance here in the CI hub. In terms of the zoning code amendments, what we are doing is proposing to update the definition of the bulk fossil fuel terminal use category to bulk fuel terminals, again, to recognize covering all types of fuels. We continue to prohibit the expansion or new terminals, and we are looking to further limit the existing terminals. We're proposing to prohibit expansion of all types of storage tank capacity. And then we are, within that, we are looking at allowing for transfers between terminals of that capacity. So again, providing some flexibility, but not having the hub itself expand in terms of that capacity. The same is true for limiting the trans-loading infrastructure. Again, we want to limit that. We do create a discretionary review process to allow some limited exceptions to those limits. And, again, we want to continue to allow the maintenance, repair, and replacements of the storage tanks to support and coordinate with the DEQ seismic stability program. And we're expanding the neighborhood contact requirements for development activities at these terminals. Again, as part of the Title 17 amendments, we are proposing a storage capacity reduction program, the drawdown program. We are proposing that this requirement line up with the timelines in the DEQ seismic stability program, such that the in-service capacity is reduced by 20% by 2036, which is what the expected implementation timeline is of the DEQ seismic stability improvements. As part of this drawdown program, the components would be requiring the terminals to submit an inventory of everything that is in service right now, and to do that by October 1st of 2026. That gives us the real foundation baseline to be able to estimate going forward and regulate going forward that reduction. We would create a process for submitting that inventory and going through a verification process. And then we would also create enforcement mechanisms, including some kind of daily fine that would be imposed if they failed to comply with these requirements. Again, we arrived at that 20% number through some energy modeling that we had parametrics do for us. We looked at a number of different assumptions. We looked at current utilization, expected utilization in 2036, what that, or 2035, what that energy modeling was showing us is that we're likely to need a capacity of around 68% of what's out there today. Right now, operationally, the tanks are never really filled all the way to the top, and that there are industry standards that operational practices that sort of reserve that top 10 to 15% to prevent overflow, to reduce risk during an earthquake event. And so when you take that 10% added to the 68%, we think that there's a 20% capacity there that we could draw down and take offline without restricting the fuel that we expect to need to support our economy and lifestyle. As I said, in the package of documents in one of the appendices is the parametrics report that shows all of the modeling assumptions. They looked at a number of different scenarios that assumed essentially different take-up of electric vehicle transitions and fuel efficiency for different types of fuels. We chose one that is labeled delayed progress. It sort of begins to reflect some of the uncertainty we currently face with some of the policy outcomes, the loss of electrical vehicle tax credits and other things that really, and that's the red line you see in this graph that really, gives us that sort of a more conservative estimate of what the fuel needs are going to be in 2036. So next steps, we have the public hearing tonight. We expect that the oral testimony will be closed this evening. We have recommended that the written testimony record be held open until this Friday at 5 o'clock. We will review all of that testimony. You will review all of that testimony. We'll help prepare some summaries for you and identify what we see as key issues as staff in that testimony and respond to your questions about that testimony. We'll come back for a work session on January 20th. Further talk about the issues, and then come back potentially on February 10th for any amendments you may have and a potential vote on a recommendation to council at that time. So if there are no questions at this point, we'll come back after public testimony and we can talk further.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Any clarifying questions before we proceed? Lovely. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll go to hearing. I have some things to read. Thank you to those who have registered to testify at this hearing. The deadline to register to testify was yesterday at 5 p.m. If you have not signed up and are here in person, you can still testify by filling out a paper sign-up sheet available at the side table, and you can give it to Autumn. Autumn, could you please? This is really Autumn. We have 68 testifiers registered to provide oral testimony today. Our intention is to hear from everyone. We believe we will be able to hear from everyone at the time allotted. In order to hear from everyone, we would really appreciate everyone's cooperation in preserving order. I'm going to say this, and it does not apply to us, but disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or commission deliberations will not be allowed. I will call testifiers in order of registration, which was emailed to all testifiers last night. Your testimony should address the proposal before the commission, which is the CEI Hub Policy Project. When testifying, please kindly state your name for the record. You don't need to share your address. If you are a lobbyist, please identify the organization you represent. And virtual testifiers, please unmute yourself when I call your name. We're going to limit testimony to 2 minutes, and we'll have a clock behind, and Autumn will have pieces of paper. Thank you. If you have more information to share, please feel free to supplement your oral testimony with written testimony through the MAP app that can be linked from the project website. We all read those. And written testimony will close on Friday, December 19 at 5 p.m. And also, fun fact, if you have already done written testimony, but something comes up today and you want to share, you don't have to just do once. You can submit further testimony. That's cool. So thank you. And again, we look forward to hearing from you. And with no further ado, I will call the first 3 folks up, and then I'll share who's on deck. So Heather King, John Rosapepe, and Nick Caleb, please come. And my apologies to anyone if I mispronounce your name. I'm going to do my best.
Steph, forgive me one moment. I've lost my HDMI.
Oh, great. Sorry. Well, while we're waiting, can I get a show of hands of anyone who it's your first time testifying before the Planning Commission? Cool, great. We good? Okay, and then because I can't stop myself, anyone who is high school or younger age, could you raise your hand? Thank you very much. And with that, Heather, please proceed.
Is this on? Oh, it's on. Okay. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Heather King. I'm the co-executive director in Lower Willamette Riverkeeper at Willamette Riverkeeper. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, present my testimony tonight. We're at a moment when Portland can make real positive change for people and the environment. There are very few times when the public has meaningful and powerful leverage over large corporations. Right now is one of them. Fossil fuel companies at the CEI Hub have made it clear that they do not want to move. They do not want to diversify their storage locations and believe that they need to stay exactly where they are. That means they cannot credibly threaten to leave the city if the city holds to stronger safety and seismic standards. Portland, therefore, has a rare opportunity right now and a responsibility to require the highest possible level of protection for the Willamette River and the communities that live and thrive off of it. The CEI Hub poses the single greatest threat to the health of the Willamette River. An earthquake, an urban wildfire, or a landslide at the hub could release millions of gallons of fuel directly into the river, causing the largest environmental disaster in Oregon and potentially the United States. Current modeling shows that a major earthquake could trigger a spill comparable or larger than the Deepwater Horizon disaster. Such an event would devastate the Willamette from the falls to the confluence with the Columbia River, and the damage would then continue downstream into the Columbia and into the Pacific Ocean. Ecosystems would collapse, fish and wildlife habitats would be wiped out, and watersheds would be poisoned for decades. The city cannot wait 10 years to act, yet BPS proposal does nothing to meaningfully reduce the risk over the next decade. We cannot afford that delay. Finally, CEI Hub policies must use mandatory and not permissive language and include clear timelines and reporting requirements that require at least a 20% reduction in fuel storage based on the daily 2025 daily average.
Thank you, Heather. Oh, sorry, thank you.
Hello. My name's John Rosapepe. I'm a citizen, and I left Portland 30 years ago, moved back 3 years, and I was sort of shocked when I came back, when I went down to this area and read about it, that more improvements hadn't been made for health of citizens and for the environment. And you have a chance to do this. The draft proposal is a step, but you have a chance to make things right. So I'm not going to be coming back in another 30 years, but future generations can benefit from you doing the right thing. And I'd also like to thank the person who let me come up because I have to run to a food bank. So thank you for having me.
Chair Routh, Vice Chair O'Meara, and Commissioners. My name is Nick Caleb, and I'm the Climate Energy Attorney at Breach Collective and a registered lobbyist. Before I reach the substance of my remarks, I'd request that the Commission extend the deadline for written comments to the second week of January. The subject matter is complex enough that we and many of our community partners need additional time to digest and fully understand the impacts of the city's proposal, and we need more time to draft and vet responsive written amendments. We appreciate the, the time and effort that city staff have invested and their willingness to hear and incorporate community feedback into the code proposal. We believe that with adequate time, we could co-create a policy package that protects the community and environment and leaves Portlanders feeling safer. Substantively, I'll address 3 concerns with the time that I have. First, the fuel drawdown strategy is confusing and appears to delay a substantial reduction in liquid fuel storage until after 2036. Instead, we need a phased drawdown that begins immediately after the code is adopted. Second, the allowance for new or expanded transloading infrastructure further complicates the idea that we are trying to draw down liquid fuels. At a minimum, public benefit in the transloading facility expansion review should be defined to include community and environmental benefits. Furthermore, criteria about minimizing public health and environmental risks to the extent practicable should be amended to a much higher standard. Again, we need more time to consider how these components all work together so there isn't an actual increase in fuel volume at the hub when the public thinks that we're getting safety improvements and a fuel drawdown. And just in the few remaining seconds that I have, I'd also like to ask the Planning Commission to entertain the idea of calling for a just transition for workers, frontline communities, tribes, and river-dependent communities. This was an ask that many organizations made in the last stage that was not included in the policy proposal yet. Thank you.
Next up, Jeremy Smith, Leah Almadia, and Claire Tagalog. And after them, Everett Patterson, Micah Mescal, and then Luke Hanst is our first virtual. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Chair Routh and Commissioners. My name is Jeremy Beausoleil Smith. The Willamette River has sustained life since time immemorial. Many of Oregon's tribes came here to trade, fish, gather plant foods, and see friends and relatives. The right to fish forever at all usual and customary places, treaties signed in 1855 with the Yakima, Umatilla, Nez Perce, and Warm Springs tribes require access to the river, and that river must support juvenile migratory fish. The city is not engaged in a meaningful tribal consultation on this critical issue, and in doing so is not honoring these treaties. The value of a healthy ecology must be included in the CEI Hub policy proposal with stipulations that support riparian habitat in the North Reach. Protecting salmon in the state of Oregon means we have to be sure juvenile fish can make their way through the North Reach. Migrating juvenile salmon often face hard bare banks, decaying docks, and no sign of riparian cover. It is estimated that our spring Chinook salmon run is about 1% of what it was historically. If we continue this trend, it will lead to environmental collapse. A 20% drawdown by 2036 is not aggressive enough to be consistent with the Oregon Department of Energy strategy for a 70% reduction at the hub by 2050. This plan must prioritize reducing overall demand for liquid fuels by investing in high-quality public transit, safe and accessible bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and building decarbonization that eliminates the need for liquefied natural gas alongside widespread electrification supported by publicly owned renewable energy systems. The plan needs stronger enforcement consequences for not complying, the city needs to implement a retroactive measure that revokes the franchise, business license, or operating ability of repeat offenders of city or state laws or policies. Portland's urgent needs for housing, good jobs, schools, and riverfront green spaces are incompatible with locking prime riverfront land into long hazardous fuel storage. We need a policy proposal that prioritizes Portlanders and starts the drawdown process immediately. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah Almeida, and I'm a senior at Lincoln High School. Living in Portland for the past 18 years has given me so much love and appreciation for the city. From the people and the community to the beautiful and complex ecosystems of the Columbia, the Willamette, and Forest Park. And that is exactly why I'm here today. I'm worried, I'm fearful, and I'm angry that so little is being done to protect our precious community and environment. Every day, every week, and every year we delay putting in place a real and effective drawdown plan is prolonging the danger of an earthquake that could cause the largest oil spill in U.S. history, that would set Forest Park and the surrounding neighborhoods ablaze, that would release huge plumes of toxic smoke into the air and waste into the water, and that would devastate communities far and wide. I urge you to create a new drawdown plan, one that is actually aggressive enough to be consistent with the Oregon Department of Energy strategy for a 70% reduction by 2050, one that actually prioritizes impacted workers, frontline communities, nearby residents, and regional tribes, one that actually serves our community and not corporate interest. As a member of the Sustainability and Climate Commission, I'm grateful for the importance youth voices are beginning to get in the Portland government. So I want to urge you to listen to my testimony, and especially those of all the young people here today. Listen to our words, because we are invested in the Portland of today, the Portland of tomorrow, and a clean, safe, livable Portland for all future generations. Please make the decision to invest in Portland too. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello, I'm Claire Tagalog, and I live in the Southwest area. I'm a senior at Lincoln High School and one of the co-chairs of the Multnomah Youth Commission. Today, I'm here on behalf of the young people of Portland and my community at Lincoln High School, as well as my community in the Multnomah County and the whole Northwest area. With that being said, I am disappointed. Listening to the discussions of the drawdown projections and reading your policies, I'm filled with a deep sense of frustration. The city is not prioritizing the community and instead putting the market at the heart of their discussions. The city's focus should be on creating a just transition to a low-carbon economy, putting workers and their lives as the priority of their discussions. But instead, all I've seen is creating policy that facilitates further industry pollution of our land and community. I agree that Portland relies on the CEI hub as part of our economy, but that does not mean that it needs to continue this way. There's no excuse to permit rampant endangerment of Portland, Oregon, and the whole Northwest area. With these policies, when an earthquake eventually does arrive, our city will become unrecognizable. And having a clean river is not only integral to Portland culture, but to all the plant and animal life throughout the Willamette Valley and beyond. Aggressive drawdown is the only responsible measure that we can take. Connection to nature has changed my life, giving me purpose and belonging. But with the policies we're supporting today, future generations may never understand the feeling of jumping into the river on a hot summer day. They'll never have the chance to admire the rich ecosystems of the Willamette, and they may never know the Northwest Coast the way it is now. I'm honored to hold a place on this earth, to be a part of the ecosystem that connects every human being. And I, just like all of you, have power as a result of being a member of this community. That power comes with the responsibility to do the right thing for us. You have a responsibility to do right by me, by all of them, and to do right by all of us. Please keep in mind this responsibility when you make your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Everett Patterson, Micah Mescal, and Luke Hanst, if they're available. And then on deck, Diane Meisenhelter, Leslie Cochen, and Lori King. And just while people are testifying, if you could keep your responses quiet so that we can make sure to hear them, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Everett Patterson. I'm here because I'm invested in the future of the city. Although I may personally move away, I know that there are people whose lives are certainly dictated by the future of this city. And the future of the CEI hub could very well be the future of this city as to illustrate, any rupture of the hub is a threat of immense wildfires in Forest Park, devastating contamination in the Willamette and Columbia rivers, and toxic clouds of smoke reaching near and far. The stake in this reaches further than just our city level. It could impact the greater Portland area and even the whole of Multnomah County, wrecking our ecosystems, lest we forget eco means home. The policy in its current state is thus wholly insufficient to combat the catastrophic risks it holds. At present, the policy advocates for a 20% drawdown by 2036 and a limit on increasing capacity for current tanks, plus an allowance for expansion with, quote, public benefit. This is even after rigorous advocacy, 20%. Even conservatively, the Oregon Department of Energy has their goal for a 70% reduction in fuels stored at the hub by 2050, which this policy is certainly not achieving with a measly 20% in 15 years. Every ounce of fossil fuels held at the CEI hub contributes to the threat of our environment and our city. Maintaining the hub at all risks millions of dollars in public health damages alone. In the face of these risks, it's obvious corporate lobbying is inspiring this frail, cowardly behavior on behalf of our government. What needs to happen, first of all, is engagement with regional tribal consult, but then further updating the long outdated structures in the CEI hub themselves to be up to date with modern safety standards. On top of this, enforcement of the drawdown regulations must be elaborated simply and concretely. What is the fine to a corporation who makes the amount in a day? Stronger confrontation against these corporations is necessary. Big threats of revoking license, operating ability, property, something significant that's made very straight and clear. Otherwise, nothing will actually change. It's not if, but when it will come to a breaking point if we don't cease as soon as possible.
Could you say your name for the record?
Everett Patterson.
Thank you.
Chair Ralph and Planning Commissioners, my name is Micah Meskel, and I'm with the Bird Alliance of Oregon. I'm representing the organization and our 10,000 Portland Metro residents. I'm going to quickly touch on a few top-line position statements and then focus on why it's important to Bird Alliance that the city enacts a strong CEI hub policy project. So beginning immediately, we are urging to mandate a faster and more aggressive drawdown of toxic fuels stored at the CEI hub, starting with 30% that aligns with statewide goals. We hope to eliminate loopholes that could allow the industry to bypass or postpone storage reductions, require modern seismic, fire, and safety upgrades for existing infrastructure right now, and include a concrete plan for a just transition that protects workers and frontline communities and that centers tribal consultation and ecological justice. The current location of the CEI hub is central to our concerns as it puts the region's environmental resources and its people at significant risk. The hundreds of fragile and aging fossil fuel storage tanks are situated along the Willamette River, the lifeblood of our city's ecology. The Willamette has been the focus of a century of restoration and the location of a multi-billion-dollar effort to clean up past industrial pollution in Portland Harbor Superfund site. A cleanup that could easily be undone in the blink of an eye with the spill at the CEI hub. These tanks are located just upstream from Sauvie Island, West Hayden Island, and Ridgefield Wildlife Refuge that contain thousands of acres of protected wildlife habitat, all put at risk from both a routine or catastrophic spill. The tanks are immediately adjacent to the city's cherished forest park, putting the largest urban forest in the U.S. at risk of burning down after an oiled tank explodes, and putting the forest, but also Northwest Portland at risk. And further downstream is the confluence of the Columbia River and 100 plus miles of habitat that reaches all the way to the Columbia River estuary that could be inundated by a rupture of the Olympic pipeline that feeds these facilities. These strengthen the policy so it immediately puts the city and community on a clearer path towards a swift drawdown. Thank you.
And our first virtual, Luke.
Hi, thank you, Chair Ruth and Planning Commissioners. My name is Luke Hanst, and I'm providing testimony as a private citizen, so please don't take this testimony to reflect the opinion of my employer or any of my collaborators. I'm Oregon raised. I grew up in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and lived in Portland from 2015 to 2024. I now spend my summers in Oregon and winter in Arizona to help out with my parents. So I really love Oregon's people, places, and natural ecosystems. I also have a deep respect for the long-term economic systems that created our state and have given us all the opportunity to live there. We wouldn't be where we are today without Portland's defining role as a transportation hub, nor without the oil industry's role in infrastructure development, transportation, and industry. It's also fair to say that our infrastructure systems weren't planned with today's more comprehensive information on natural hazards and zoning code best practices. Because of these largely historic choices, the city of Portland and the people living there today bear a significantly higher than average risk of earthquake-induced hazardous material releases, particularly those risks associated with bulk storage of fuels at the CEI hub and the risks of inadequately constructed facilities storing other extremely hazardous substances, such as the usage of ammonia gas in refrigeration warehouses critical to long-distance food transportation networks. I believe it is a reasonable time for the City of Portland to request that the volume of bulk storage in the CEI hub should be distributed to other locations in the state and shifted to other sources of sustainable energy, what the state calls energy diversification. This would lessen the burden placed on Portland while also making the state more resilient to natural hazards. I hope that going forward, the BPS zoning codes will continue to implement today's best practice of limiting the exposure of hazardous installations to natural hazards, and when this can't be done, ensuring that those hazardous facilities are constructed to the highest engineering standards. Thank you.
And you are already before us. Thank you. And on deck, Willie Levinson, Laurel Files, and Ana Tijerina Esquino.
Diana Meisenhalter. So extending public comment to second week would really be helpful. In the 2021 Zenith case, the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, noted that Portland's comprehensive plan language should be strengthened from aspirational to enforceable in sections related to the CEI hub. The first step is to change the vague comprehensive plan glossary definition of limit. Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the internationally recognized standard bearer for definitions, defines limit as to restrict, restrain, or put boundaries on, which is more prohibitory than the current. In some policy sections, the city may need to define restriction specifics. The revised definition of limit is particularly important in 6.48 to clarify the intent is to restrict and put boundaries on liquid fuels. Section 6.48 should further specify Portland policy as transitioning away from combustible, flammable, toxic liquid fuels stored in natural hazard areas for the public's safety's sake. A second significant change would be to eliminate the words mitigate, mitigation, and reduce in the many sections of the comp plan related to the CEI hub. Mitigate is not defined in the comprehensive plan glossary, and both words are virtually meaningless as they might lessen a tiny little bit or a huge amount. Stronger verbs would be prevent, prevention, or deter. The words encourage or foster suggest voluntary change, which could be incremental or none, while regulate or require move beyond aspirational. Throughout the comprehensive plan, language relating to the CEI hub needs strengthened to ensure actions are more rigorous and accountable. Specific examples of language changes will be part of the written testimony. The public benefits for transloading and transferring needs defined and specified in the zoning code is a huge loophole. The city's proposed section on neighborhood notification is problematic. Given the disproportionate risk borne by frontline neighborhoods near the CEI, the notification language must be strengthened to ensure early, accessible, and multilingual notice, formal inclusion of community concerns in the public record, and public city council hearings where decision makers respond to those concerns before permit decisions are made. The city's proposal in the comprehensive plan should include a summary of the limitations.
It was compelling. we have to move on.
Oh, that's sorry, I was just into it.
No, this is great. And if there's any part that you're unable to make, please also take advantage of written testimony for further comment too.
Okay, I didn't hear the little dinghy
No.
sound.
Please. Leslie?
Yeah. My name is Leslie Cochin. I'm a member of Extinction Rebellion PDX, and I'm pleased to see the city acknowledge the need for a transition to a low-carbon economy in 3.83G of the comprehensive plan, but this point needs to be expanded upon. The plan must focus on a much more immediate and rapid drawdown of fuels at the hub through investment in public transit, alternative active transportation, building decarbonization, rapid electrification, and limits on unnecessary and carbon-intensive development through zoning, financial disincentives, and other tools. Suggestions for an expanded plan include: 1, add just before the word transition when used; 2, working with the community and affected workers, develop a vision and strategies for transitioning to a low-carbon economy; 3, include clear goals, evaluation methods, interim targets, and timelines; and 4, include periodic reviews of actions at the hub to measure actual drawdown and to review compliance with other requirements. I urge city decision makers to choose a path that honors the well-being of workers, frontline communities, tribes, and ecosystems, rather than those who hold profit as the highest value. A transition to a low-carbon well-being economy is doable, but it will require an expanded vision of how we get there that should be described in 3.83G and advocated for by the city. And I will provide more details in written testimony. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm Laurie King. The most significant and doable way to reduce risk at the hub is by reducing the amount of flammable, combustible, and toxic substances on liquefiable soils. In the current draft, a large loophole allows companies at the hub to increase transloading capacity if it's a public benefit and if the public health and environmental risks are minimized. Increased transloading capacity can put more flammable, toxic, and combustible materials on unstable soils, even if tank capacity is drawn down. Zenith quadrupled its transloading capacity between 2017 and 19. Right now, 1,320,000 gallons of fuel could be held in just Zenith's tank cars, more than the amount contained in a typical tank. But it can go further, according to the BPS draft. The global infrastructure investor that is buying Zenith will, like Zenith, probably want to be the West Coast hub for so-called renewables and SAF, and will want to increase transloading capacity. Other companies may also increase transloading capacity. Note that these rail cars at loading docks are not covered under the DEQ seismic plans, which is outrageously dangerous. The provisos in the current draft allowing transloading capacity increases only if there's a public benefit and health risks are minimized lend cold comfort to tens of thousands of working class and BIPOC families living in North, Northeast, Northwest Portland, like mine, who are on the front lines of an all too real catastrophe. Who will be determining the existence of a public benefit and whose interests will they have at heart? I'm skeptical here. For too long, our city has not prioritized the health and safety of our communities and environment with respect to operations at the hub. I believe it can clearly be said now, without kicking the can down the road, that the public benefit is prioritizing community health and safety and not adding any more fuel to this fire. Please, we're looking to you to close this loophole and stop and prohibit transloading capacity, period. Thank you.
Do we have Willie Levinson, Laurel Viles, and Ana Tijerina Esquino?
Chair Routh, if I may make an announcement, there's a few folks emailing in who are looking to testify virtually. Just to clarify, you will be let into the room when you're on deck to testify, at which point you can unmute. And currently,
Both Willie and Laurel are not yet online, so we can bump them down when they sign on. Thank you.
I'm testifying for Laurel.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Could we invite you to say your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Sean Looney. My colleague Laurel Viles couldn't make it, and I'm delivering her testimony. Though Laurel lives in Southeast Portland, her research as a college intern revealed far-reaching effects of the hub and its impact on the entire region. A fuel crisis will erupt across the state in a disaster like our future earthquake. We can't travel and escape areas of peril if we can't get fuel. Roads will also be disrupted, which means that the 90% of Oregon's fuel that sits in the hub, if it doesn't all spill, will be stuck there with no way of being used for emergency vehicles. Toxic air plumes from failures at the hub can drift long distances in the event of a large quake. One release scenario would direct toxins north into Washington state, impacting St. Helens, Columbia City, and other locations along the way. Another scenario is projecting that toxic air will travel as far south as Pete's Mountain, southeast of Tualatin, hitting areas including Portland, Milwaukee, and Lake Oswego. This does not account for pipelines running here from Bellingham, Washington, that would rupture and cause environmental disasters and threats to human health. That leads to another concern, water quality. It will affect us all, including fish and other inhabitants of waterways. Since waterways are interconnected, this would be catastrophic for many miles beyond the hub. Pipes would also rupture, meaning no drinking water. Lifeline infrastructure would be damaged, so firefighters won't be able to put out fires erupting at the hub due to broken fire water lines. In summary, Portland can either be a needed asset or a lethal liability for the entire region. These concerns are why we must work on a solution now to draw down fuel volumes, diversify fuel storage, and safely store the remaining fuel in updated tanks. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ana Tijerina Esquino. I'm a professional engineer and a graduate researcher that has been working with the Fuel Tank Seismic Stability Program under the DEQ. Now, I came here today to show you a little bit of what I've learned in my studies about the Critical Energy Hub. A prior assessment showed that nearly 98% of those tanks were designed prior to 1993. If you are an engineer or work in engineering, 1993 is the year we updated our modern seismic code. What that means for the tanks that are in place is that they were not designed to withstand an earthquake, much less the one that we now know is certainly coming. Now, what else have I learned from researching under the Fuel Tank Seismic Stability Program? All the facilities have found liquefiable soils at the site. Liquefiable soils are soils that can lose all of their strength during an earthquake, so are a concern. Now, not even considering the tank fragility, the actual tank itself, the ground is estimated to move in between centimeters to over 10 feet at CEI hub facilities. As a practicing civil engineer, I can tell you that it would be very, very difficult to design something to withstand a 10-foot displacement across just my facility. I think that it is honestly a smart and responsible decision to diversify our fuel storage so that we are not reliant on an area that is known to have a high hazard of liquefaction. Now, the independent facilities did an assessment. Myself and people at PSU are doing independent assessments, but no matter the exact number of feet or inches that these facilities displace, the tanks could be placed elsewhere. I recognize that the city of Portland has little impact over statewide policy, but the impact would be grave to the entire state if we have all of our fuel facilities displacing over 10 feet and causing compounding changes that are hard to even imagine. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next up, we have Daniel Eisenbeis, Angela Bonilla, and on virtually, Ronald Bosson. And after that, Candace Jimenez, Cassie Cohen, and Luna Valentin.
Chair Routh and members of the commission, I'm Dan Eisenbeis, Regional Affairs Manager with the Port of Portland and a registered lobbyist. You will also find written testimony from the Port on the MAP app. The Port of Portland is a public agency whose mission is to build shared prosperity for the region through travel, trade, and economic development. The port is committed to advancing resilience and long-term environmental health. We operate 3 marine terminals, 6 industrial parks, and 3 airports, including PDX. Operations at PDX and visitor spending facilitated by the airport contribute $4.5 billion in value added to the economy. I want to be clear. The port has strong concerns about the proposed draft. The analysis is insufficient and flawed. It severely understates the projected growth in jet fuel demand by relying on Pacific region forecasts instead of utilizing more accurate PDX-specific projections. It inappropriately assumes storage capacity is fungible from one terminal to another for aviation fuel. And it only looks at the CEI hub as a whole and does not account for facility-specific operations and needs, even though PDX receives all of its jet fuel supply via a pipeline from the Wilbridge terminal, where fuel must be filtered, settled, and certified. This means demand for aviation fuel capacity at the terminal will grow as demand at PDX increases, even with additional on-site storage at the airport. It will also hinder emerging supply chains for sustainable aviation fuel that depend on facilities with certain transloading access. Despite comp plan policy to enhance economic infrastructure, including PDX, it will disproportionately increase the cost of aviation fuel at PDX, hurting tourism, business travel, and Oregon exports. The port respectfully urges you to provide an exception for aviation fuel from the proposed drawdown requirement, as well as restrictions on storage capacity and transloading infrastructure. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have Angela?
Hello, yes, I'm online. Oh, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Hello, my name is Angela Bonilla. I am the president of the Portland Association of Teachers, and I'm speaking on behalf of the almost 4,000 educators in Portland Public Schools. I stand in support of stronger language and loopholes that will allow for an immediate start to the drawdown use of the CEI hub. As this commission already knows, the Critical Energy Infrastructure Hub is located in a high earthquake risk zone and is vulnerable to major spills, fires, explosions. And this is not a distant industrial issue. It's an imminent threat to the health, safety, and lives of our students and educators. Within 2 miles of the CEI hub, we have over 22 public schools, 1 public early learning center, 10 elementary schools, 3 K-8 schools, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, 1 alternative school, and our community transitions program. As was made clear during the last bond campaign from Portland Public Schools, most of our buildings are seismically vulnerable. So not only are families worried about their students, if their students will be harmed, if there's a seismic event, that worry is compounded by the dangers present due to the CEI hub. Our school communities should not be forced to live and learn in the shadow of an unacceptable risk. This is a matter of environmental justice and racial justice. We have the duty to provide a safe learning environment, and the CEI hub actively undermines that. We are workers and we stand with the environment and our families over moneyed interests. We need to see the sizable loopholes and weak standards strengthened to prevent unintended future expansions. We need support to transition impacted workers and the communities that are impacted, such as our indigenous communities. We need a more aggressive drawdown schedule to ensure that we have reduced the amount of fuel stored at the site by 2050 down to 70%. This is a historic decision that will literally shape the future of the city for better or for worse. There is no tourism, there is no commerce, there is no business without the environment. Do not let corporate influences dictate a plan that puts our community at risk. I urge that y'all strengthen the proposed draft policy, truly center community safety, and create a legacy of resilience for Portland. We cannot wait. Thank you.
And is there, thank you, Angela, is there Ronald Bossum? I do not see. Okay, we will try try to gather before the break. Next up, Candace Jimenez, Cassie Cohen, Luna Valentine, and on deck, Jennifer Crowell, Jamarian Malley, and Mark D'Arienzo. Again, my apologies if I have mispronounced your names.
Candace Jimenez is on her way, but she might just join virtually if that's all right. And I don't know if she's on yet. I think she might be out there on the Zoom. Next, or I think she's up first, so.
Okay.
Not on yet.
Yeah, why don't we go with you and then we'll
Okay.
We'll wait in joyful hope.
Greetings, Planning Commissioners. My name is Cassie Cohen. I'm the Director of Portland Harbor Community Coalition. My parents settled here on Chinook Multnomah lands in the 70s, and I was born here shortly after in the blast zone. I've had family and friends work for many years in the blast zone. Their companies had no safety plan for their workers. My child, Luna, who you will hear from next, has grown up knowing she cannot harvest or consume the fish from the banks of the Portland Harbor, only catch and release. Asthma rates have also been too high for children on the North Peninsula for many decades. The city has known this and far greater human risks that persist. I ask you today, who are you accountable to in your decision-making on the CEI hub? For these reasons, I ask you to insist that the following adjustments be made to the BPS Senior Planner's proposal. First, CEI drawdown should start at 30% over 10 years without delay and have the corporations draw down in regular increments, such as 3% per year until they have fully transitioned. Number two, no more tanks or infrastructure that expand storage, transferring, or transporting of fuels. Safety upgrades that allow for more storage capacity will lead to more explosive fuel trains in our neighborhoods. Number three, collaborate with like our group and partners in Multnomah County to address cumulative impacts and set real metrics towards an assertive, just transition so that no future generations of children have compromised lungs or lives at risk. CEI Hub is the most important transition of our generation. Also collaborate with the county to hold facilities accountable to both fixed sources of pollution as well as mobile sources of pollution that would include ongoing, transparent monitoring in locations identified by frontline communities. And lastly, enforcement of drawdown and air quality monitoring needs to include penalties for noncompliance that match the cost of the Cascade Subduction Zone CEI Hub catastrophe. Thank you for listening. Approving these changes will help the city live up to its green city reputation. Thank you, Cassie.
Hello, my name is Luna. I am 10 years old and I go to Scott Elementary. I'm here to speak about children's lives being risked by the fuels that flow through our neighborhoods and close to our schools and daycares to the CEI hub and back out again. I want the city to make the CEI hub safer for our communities. Thousands of kids who live and go to schools and daycares close to the location of the CEI hub are at risk of losing their lives if the fuel tanks fall in the river and catch on fire. The fire and toxic smoke would spread and lives would be lost. In a book called The Water Protector, there is a character that is the black snake. The black snake symbolizes the oil. It devours everything in its way until the people rise up. In 1999, there was an explosion from the Olympic pipeline in Bellingham, Washington, that took the lives of 3 children, 2 who were my age. You should feel empathy, as I do, for those innocent lives lost. This deadly pipeline continues to flow south to the CEI hub. If this pipe and those tanks collapse into the river, a tremendous amount of lives and animals will be lost. How many leaks and lives need to be lost until we find a way to make the CEI hub safe, storing clean energy? As a youth, I want to make things better for future generations, and I invite you to take a healthy risk and do the same.
And we have Candace online. Candace, welcome.
Thank you. Itukti Wigwa Kanawisha, Nika Shawish Kliu Timix, Nika Beshnemtij Kliu Candace Jimenez. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Candace Jimenez. I'm chair of the Portland Harbor Community Coalition and a citizen of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. When I speak about the CEI Hub today, I'm not just speaking about fuel tanks or zoning overlays. I'm speaking as someone whose ancestors have carried stewardship to this place since long before it was called Portland. To the rivers that are along here, our first highways, our first teachers, and the places where our stories sit like stones waiting to be uncovered. The stories carried here today are heavy: contamination, displacement, illness, and decisions made far from the people who live with their impacts. And yet our communities still show up because we believe in healing. Rivers can recover, so can cities when decision makers choose courage over convenience. The CEI Hub has long concentrated risk in already overburdened neighborhoods. The city's plan acknowledges daily toxic emissions, but stops short of meaningfully reducing them. That is not stewardship, but moving towards river healing and justice is. A 20% drawdown by 2036 is not enough. If safety is truly the goal, the drawdown must start at no less than 30%, not end at 20% after another decade of risk. And the plan must close loopholes, including those that allow fuel to be shifted or expanded through mechanisms like transloading, so reductions are real and not just theoretical. For tribal nations, environmental decisions are inseparable from sovereignty, stewardship, treaty rights, and our responsibility for future generations. Yet Portland still lacks a consistent, meaningful citywide tribal consultation practice, which is embedded especially for decisions affecting land and water. So tonight I'm asking two things: strengthening the CEI Hub plan with real reductions and accountability, and two, to commit to citywide tribal consultation so decisions are no longer made without the people whose homelands you are planning upon. Portland is at a turning point, one where frontline communities, tribal nations, and the river herself is centered, not sacrificed. Our ancestors are watching how we carry our stewardship of the river, and our children will live with what we decide. And let this be a moment that the city listens and chooses to protect what truly sustains us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Jennifer Crowell, Jamarian Malley, and Mark D'Arienzo. And on deck is Tanya Hartnett, Patricia Kohlberg, and Heidi Ambrose. Thank you all for being here. And also, while they're getting situated, we've been here about an hour. Remember to hydrate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm Dr. Jennifer Crowell, an ecologist living in Southeast Portland and affiliated with Scientist Rebellion and Extinction Rebellion. I want to acknowledge the improvements you've made based on feedback, especially the recognition that so-called renewable or sustainable fuels are just as high of a threat at the CEI Hub as other fuels. The City Council hearing earlier this year about renewable fuels was amazing, and I hope you got to see it. Thank you for listening to the scientists. As a scientist, I'm extremely concerned about climate change. As time goes by, the most realistic models are increasingly the scariest ones. As our leaders, you must press for the boldest plans possible. We are at a turning point for energy, and this is the last gasp for fossil fuel company viability. Do not assume that fossil fuel companies operating today will even exist by the 2036 drawdown deadline. You must prioritize our children's safety over their demands for maintaining profits. I urge you to go much higher than 20% by 2036. I also urge you to provide a detailed roadmap for getting there, starting right now, rather than giving them room to delay until the last minute, which they will. Specify drawdown amounts in terms of actual measurements of average daily fill levels. Finally, the current proposal does not adequately address the safety concerns we all have here. I urge you to link equipment age and condition to something like catastrophe bonds to incentivize companies to prioritize safety upgrades at the same time as they ensure funds are available when, not if, disasters happen. You have the authority and the ability to do this.
Thanks for having me here, Commissioners. I'm Jamarian. I'm a longtime Portland, North Portlander, actually right out of St. John's myself. I represent the Portland Harbor Community Coalition and also myself individually as someone who's grown up in this area. I knew for a long time growing up. I just want to say everybody has been very good on the point. All of my points are sucked dry, but to hear the commonality of people who probably didn't have the same direct experience as me. My mom is a cancer survivor. My brother has a disorder mentally. I am epileptic. My father has survived a heart attack, and we lived encircled by nothing but industry. It only took until I was only 35 years old to know exactly what the CEI hub actually contained and what it was capable of should the impeding earthquake happen. But I want to take mention of three different things from someone who's lived in that area. I went to elementary school at James John Middle School. I went to middle school at George Middle School. My brother and sister went to Roosevelt High School. And I would hate to see these places be completely evaporated by the name of money and not the improvement of society and the environment and actually the people who are supposed to be the caretakers of this planet as I see us as humans. So just think about this. At any given moment, if you go to North Portland and you go over by Lombard, Fred Meyers, and you notice that there's a certain amount of carts just sitting over the overpass, you'll see up to 22 carts. We have a video on our website that shows what 22 carts of that petroleum substance is able to do, and it actually equates to more than what Hiroshima was able to do in an atomic.
Okay, my name is Dr. Mark D'Arienzo. I'm a geologist with a specialty in earthquakes and tsunamis. Now, usually with respect to the subduction zone earthquake, we usually talk about shaking and liquefaction and the associated damages to the sea hub from them. However, something that is not talked about as much, as far as I can tell, are the aftershocks that occur months following the earthquake and the potential for triggering of local faults, which could produce earthquakes up to 7 magnitude. So basically, you're essentially seeing a reign of terror over several months, maybe even years. For example, the May 22, 1960 Chile earthquake, a magnitude 9.5, there were dozens of aftershocks, including a 7.9, hours after the main shock, and aftershocks of magnitude 7 or greater through November. And in June 6, there was a 7.7 earthquake along a fault inland of the coast. And of course, the Alaska earthquake of 1964 had hundreds of aftershocks in the first few weeks. First day had 11 with magnitude greater than 6, 9 more over the next 3 weeks, thousands in the months to follow, and smaller earthquakes for more than a year. Now, the proposed zoning code amendments are inadequate with respect to protecting the city from earthquakes. Given this inadequacies, the continuous delay of the structural retrofitting of the tank farms, the reign of terror we're going to see with the big subduction earthquake, and the disasters caused by climate change, I think the city, as well as the state, must think seriously about the future and quickly transition from dangerous bulk fuels to greener and cleaner energy sources and dramatically increase the energy efficiency and structural integrity of buildings. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify.
Thank you all. And next we have Tanya Hartnett, Patricia Kuhlberg, and Heidi Ambrose. On deck, we have Michaela McCormick, David Labby, and Randall Friesen.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tanya Hartnett. I am a registered lobbyist, and I am the Executive Director of Working Waterfront Coalition that represents 28 industrial and maritime businesses of whom powers Portland Harbor economy and sustains tens of thousands of middle-wage jobs across our region. 8 of our members have facilities in the CEI hub, with all businesses affected by this policy because of their reliance on the fuels stored in the hub. Our number one concern is the proposed 20% drawdown. that ignores the role the CEI hub plays in being the source of Oregon and Southwest Washington's fuel supply and the impact this drawdown will have on our state's economic and employment outlook. There was no economic analysis of supply and demand, fuel prices, and fuel availability, locally, statewide, and regionally. It ignores the need for tank capacity during the transition to low-carbon renewable fuels and the need during this time for tankage for traditional and renewable fuels. It ignores the need for tank capacity given closure of California refineries and potential disruptions to fuel deliveries like what happened recently with the Olympic Pipeline. It ignores the need for tank capacity during the implementation of seismic improvements as determined by the Oregon Fuel Tank Seismic Stability Program. While we appreciated the proposed opportunity to transfer tank capacity between operators and invest in critical infrastructure, the proposed process is very subjective and appealable, making the likelihood of said opportunities occurring to be remote. Instead, the ability for tank capacity transfers and investments in infrastructure should be outlined with clear objectives in the comp plan, should be based on objective standards. Finally, the proposal lacks integration with the objectives of Oregon's Climate Protection Plan, Clean Fuels Program, and Fuel Tank Seismic Stability Program. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Patricia Kohlberg, and I'm a retired physician and public health official, and I'm also here on behalf of Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I would like to draw the city's attention to the actual harms right now to neighboring communities from toxic air emissions due to normal daily operations at the hub. And I would suggest that the city has an obligation to intervene to protect residents from these harms. First and foremost, a more rapid drawdown than proposed would help clean up our air faster. The smaller the volume of fuel funneling through the hub, the cleaner our air becomes. The EPA has designated North Portland as one of 13 communities nationwide that is most overburdened with industrial air pollution. And the proposed plan acknowledges these air quality issues but doesn't offer any solutions. The position of the city is that air quality is not their problem, but the current regulatory apparatus is woefully inadequate to protect residents. As just one example, corporate entities at the hub are not held accountable for the mobile sources of diesel pollution that they generate through truck, train, and barge traffic at the hub. The ports of Seattle and Tacoma have already moved to ban all but zero-emission trucks from entering their ports. Let's do that too. Air toxics represent a serious health problem right now, not in some distant future. My written testimony outlines in detail the limits of EPA and DEQ regulations and suggests measures the city could take to help. Thanks.
Hello. The City of Portland has a chance here to be a global leader in making fossil fuels history.
Sorry, could you say your name?
Yeah, my name is Heidi Ambrose, and this is Bailey Burke-Kernvery, and we are here with Sunrise PDX, which is a national climate justice movement for people and planet. If supply is limited, demand must decrease with a just transition. Economy and environmental and people protection does not have to be at odds to what the suits here may claim. We are calling on our leaders here to take preemptive action before it's too late. This is our moment to be a national leader on fuel modernization. Imagine a Portland where we have fast, free, and public transport, fueled with green power, not so-called renewables. We'd have clean air and water, safer streets, a healing ecosystem, and healthier communities. Our BIPOC and lower-income neighborhoods would no longer be at risk of bearing the worst of a climate disaster. This is possible with your continued and emboldened leadership.
We recognize the bureaucracy of it all and how often it keeps our hands tied. Zones, permits, coding, it's a lot. And we recognize that our officials and representatives have a history of finding creative and bold solutions to systemic problems. Imagine if cities around the country point to Portland as a climate leader. This is one of the most obvious moves to make, even though it might be difficult with all the competing interests. Making radical moves away from toxic fuel has to be our future, because our future and Portland's future depends on us choosing to be bold leaders now. Less fuel means less risk, and we need a drawdown now. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you all. Next, we have Michaela McCormick, David Labby, Randall Friesen, and then on deck, we have Howard Bell, Ralph Brooks, and Nikki Mandel. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm Michaela McCormick. The conditions in which the CEI hub is operating are dire, given the extreme toxicity of the bulk fuels that are stored there. We know that they emit tons of CO2 into the atmosphere as they are burned, and making this the biggest single cause of global warming. And we know that the vast majority of the world's climate scientists agree that the warming is causing increasing catastrophic damage to the earth and our health. We also know that an earthquake could hit Portland at any time and cause the liquefiable soil that the hub sits on to collapse, making the fuel tanks break apart, possibly explode, and causing the fuels to pour into the Willamette River. This will cause further unimaginable catastrophic damage to the river and its environs and all the beings, human and more than human, living here. Yet we persist in supporting this dangerous and poisonous facility. The hub fuels many other businesses and a substantial part of our economy, which in turn contribute to the climate crisis. Our dependence on these fuels has gone way past their utility to become an existential threat. We need to begin a complete, I repeat, a complete drawdown of the CEI hub as we accelerate a transition to clean energy sources. If we want to avoid multiple catastrophes and the destruction of our environment, we need to face the economic challenges of giving up on the bulk fuels that the CEI hub stores. Please do the responsible thing and protect the citizens, patch of earth you represent.
My name is David Labby. I'm a member of Tank the Tanks. We support BPS's goal in mandating a CEI hub storage drawdown, but would like to amend and strengthen their proposal in 3 ways. First, we believe, even based on BPS's estimates, that a drawdown should begin now. You saw the slide that said by 2035 that there would be 68% average capacity, leaving 32% empty spare capacity. Well, today, according to BPS, there is 70% average capacity with 30% spare capacity. What is the difference? Why wait to reduce risk when the spare capacity for a drawdown actually exists today, according to BPS? Second, we believe the drawdown can and should be based on actual measurements from the facilities, not best guesses. Terminals already report their maximum daily fill levels to the state fire marshal by statute. So calculating an average daily fill for an accurate, not estimated drawdown should be fairly straightforward. CEI terminals are not all the same and operate differently. Some receive fuel from the Olympic pipeline and distribute it through other pipelines. Others get fuel incrementally from barges and trains and distribute it truck by truck to service stations. They all don't have the same spare capacity. It doesn't make sense to have one drawdown across all facilities. Applying one drawdown will likely hurt some and advantage others. The drawdown can and should be based on and tailored to the measured spare capacity of each facility, not a CEI hub average. Third, with accurate terminal data, the drawdown can start now and be adjusted every 3 to 5 years based, as BPS proposes, on the state's goals and progress towards the energy transition. The specific code language for our Title 33 amendments is in our written testimony. As written, the current policy is one of doing nothing to reduce CEI Hub for 10 years. Please amend the BPS proposal to institute a drawdown now. Thank you.
Good evening, Good evening, Chair Routh and Commissioners. Appreciate your time. My name is Randall Friesen. I'm the Executive Director of the Columbia Pacific Building Trades Council. I am here today representing more than 16,000 construction professionals across the Portland metropolitan and Southwest Washington region. According to the proposed draft, more than 90% of Oregon's liquid fuel supply moves through this hub. Planning for energy grid resource adequacy and reliability is appropriately a state responsibility, not something that can be managed piecemeal through local mandates. Actions that affect fuel availability and energy grid performance must be aligned with statewide planning to avoid unintended reliability and affordability consequences. For that reason, the Building Trades Council cannot support the draft as is currently written. It relies on modeling assumptions that even the Oregon Department of Energy has cautioned against using as firm basis for land use or zoning decisions. In its October comments to the city, Department of Energy explicitly warned the modeling used to justify fuel storage reductions reflects broad directional trends and should not be relied upon to support specific drawdown targets or policy mandates. The draft also lacks a realistic economic analysis of fuel availability, system reliability, price impacts, and employment effects across the broader economy. Limiting the analysis to 1,329 jobs currently at the hub underestimates the scale of economic impact of the energy products themselves. In fact, liquid fuels provide for the entire economy. A premature and arbitrary 20% drawdown would create ripple effects across the transportation, construction, manufacturing, and other sectors that rely on a reliable energy supply. The Columbia Pacific Building Trades is committed to building and maintaining safe, reliable energy infrastructure for Oregon's families and businesses. We urge decision makers to coordinate at the state level and ground this work in sound engineering, economic reality, and public safety while protecting labor and workforce well-being. Thank you for your consideration. Appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thank you all. And next we have Howard Bell, Ralph Brooks, Nikki Mandel, and on deck is Theodora Songas, Nancy Heiser, and Malik McKenzie.
So I'm Howard, so I'll start.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
Chair Steph and the rest of the council, I appreciate being here. I enjoy talking to policymakers. So I am the business manager for OPIU Local 11. I represent natural gas workers at Northwest Natural, and I'm also a construction foreman. I retired from there for 34 years. So I was at both town hall meetings prior, and I asked the question, is this about safety or carbon emissions? And they said it was about safety, but it veered off topic quite a bit. So I just wanted to get the opportunity to talk about what Northwest Natural can offer for safety. We have a 24/7 operation. We have the ability to shut off our valves remotely. So if there's an emergency, we can shut them off. They're called actuary valves. We also have a process right now, groups that's working on seismic upgrades to be presented to the DEQ for their review. And we also have amazing scenario-based training. So we help train emergency responders, any kind of emergency event. So we're very skilled in 24/7 operation emergencies. So we have three concerns. So purchasing natural gas when prices are affordable and strong, it helps reduce costs for customers. Limiting our storage capacity would increase costs passed on to customers. So in the summer, when we can buy cheap gas, we buy a lot of it and we store it. And that way in the winter, when it's cold, we can sell it to the customers for a very affordable price. So if we limited it, right, our storage, then it's going to be passed on to the customers. And then during cold weather events, additional storage may be necessary to ensure adequate supply and meet customer demand. So we have an obligation to provide uninterrupted and reliable service to our customers. And the people that get impacted most when you reduce the energy need are the poor, disabled, and the elderly. And we don't want to have an issue where we can't provide them with the energy they need. And then finally, limiting diesel storage would also negatively impact our construction workforce Diesel fuel is essential to operate work vehicles and equipment, including excavators and dump trucks, and reduced access. Good to see you.
I'm not sure what's next.
Ralph?
Is it Ralph? All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ralph Brooks, and I'm here with my neighbor, Ann Rattan. We're the leadership for our Forest Park South Firewise neighborhood. We're here today to express our concerns regarding the increased wildfire risk to neighborhoods surrounding Forest Park caused by the close proximity to the flammable and toxic petroleum-based storage facilities, the heavy tanker railroad traffic, and the pipelines within the CEI hub area. We're only expressing one of the many concerns you've heard today, and we're seeking your support to take actions to help mitigate the fire risk created by this area. Firewire is a national program. We enable participating neighborhoods to teach people how to adapt to living with wildfire. Leadership for these Firewise neighborhoods are local volunteers that encourage our neighbors to work together and coordinate with local municipalities. We provide education and support for residents to take action through simple and effective steps, helping our communities reduce the risk of destruction from wildfires. We currently have 10 recognized Firewise neighborhoods within Portland. 5 of those neighborhoods surround Forest Park. Recent catastrophic events in Oregon and California, including the wildfires in Oregon's Columbia Gorge, Santiam Pass, and California's fires that devastated the city of Pasadena and the Los Angeles metro area, show how devastating wildfires can be in communities within the urban wildfires, the wildland urban interface areas, WUI. As demonstrated in LA, Portland is at risk of wildfires, and in participating neighborhoods surrounding our unique and beloved Forest Park, where the risk is increasing. Climate change is occurring. We're seeing hotter and drier summers. Forest Park has significant invasive species, and heavy undergrowth can fuel wildfires. We have growing homeless population where more people are camping in and around Forest Park. And of course, we have the CEI hub, considered one of the greatest local risks in the event of a natural disaster like the Cascadian earthquake or human-caused accidents. I can say with confidence that our concerns from the risk of the CEI hub are shared by the Firewise leadership with all of the local Firewise neighborhoods and participating, in particular, those surrounding Forest Park. Any event with the CEI hub resulting in fire where the right climate and wind conditions can cause embers to spread to adjacent Forest Park and quickly wildfires throughout the hills.
My name is Nikki Mandel. This project is a welcome opportunity to address the dangers posed by fuel storage and transloading at the hub. The proposed Comp Plan Policy 3.83 frames this correctly. Our goal must be to, quote, support safety and risk reduction to foster community resilience and human and environmental health. Unfortunately, the proposal fails to do this. Most troubling are the provisions for storage capacity transfer and transloading expansion. Capacity transfer and transloading are inseparably connected in the proposal. These have no place in a policy intended to reduce risk and foster resilience, health, and safety. I urge you first to delete all code related to storage capacity transfer. Transfer is unrelated to risk reduction. Instead, the proposal claims that the intent is to maintain fuel supply reliability, but it does not even do that. How will capacity be transferred? Nothing prohibits terminals from selling their excess or going out of business capacity. In effect, this code would create a storage capacity marketplace, a financial, not a land use matter. How will capacity be used? Nothing requires the receiving terminal to handle the same kinds of fuels or serve the same customers. Nothing prohibits repurposing the transferred capacity. In fact, the proposed code requires the city to permit transloading expansion to handle the transferred capacity, thereby greenlighting the transition to an export hub. Second, replace the 2 review protocols for transfer and transloading with a single bulk fuel terminals review. Storage and transloading take place only because they are means to an end. Reviewing these separately, divorced from a terminal's total operations, is illogical. Worse, it hobbles the city's ability to prevent development that would increase dangers at the hub. My written comments explain and provide specific recommendations for these and other needed changes. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Theodora Songas, an environmental health scientist with a career in epidemiology and public health. As you may be aware, we are in the midst of at least 2 threats to our existence for which we must prepare now. Those are the already dire impacts of the climate emergency and the predicted overdue subduction zone earthquake. Delay is not sustainable in any sense of the word. We cannot rationally ignore the catastrophic risks to public health and to the environment upon which we depend for life that is posed by the fuel stored at the critical energy infrastructure hub. These health risks and other adverse effects are felt every day, both from the continued burning of fossil fuels as well as from the routine and accidental releases of extremely hazardous substances from tanks and infrastructure in the air that concentrates in the adjacent communities. The toxic substances released include cancer-causing chemicals like benzene and other volatile compounds, as well as pollutants that adversely affect heart, lung, circulatory, and brain functions, and adjacent communities suffer the greatest risks and effects. This is unjust, and delay in addressing those risks cannot be condoned. We need to act now to reduce CEI hub and climate risks. Waiting 10 years, as proposed in the plan, will only prolong and increase our danger and significantly reduce our ability to recover. I urge you to strengthen the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability's draft into a policy that centers community safety and public health, and that is truly sustainable. Please act now to close loopholes and provide specifics on a just transition to a low-carbon economy. I will submit more detailed written comments. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Who's first? You or me? I don't recall. Either one. We have Nancy and then Malik. Okay. Would like?
Yes, my name is Nancy Heiser. I am a registered lobbyist for community safety. I live in Linton, home of the CEI hub. BPS notes that tanks will be taken out of service during the drawdown. Old, unsafe, abandoned structures will increase as the industry transitions to climate-friendly alternatives. The policy does not make a plan for those tanks. The 2022 Portland-Multnomah County report identified at least 139 out-of-service tanks, not counting Zenith Energy's tanks. Likely there are more. Tanks that are permanently out of service by EPA rule cannot be reused, so they have no value for storage, nor do they add to the facility's capacity. Likely built before seismic standards, many sit on unanchored bases. In a major earthquake, they can slide, collapse, and spark fires. The city should call for owners to remove their abandoned, permanently out-of-service tanks, which is not required now. This should include complete remediation after removal to avoid costly cleanup later, as older tanks may cover evidence of earlier leaks. Some hub tanks have not been used for decades. Just down I-5, Millersburg passed an ordinance in 2022 stating that any liquid fuel storage tank unused for just 12 months must be removed. This ordinance was based on existing Portland Fire Code. Our one facility here removed 15 tanks there. Portland should do the same. Please recommend zoning code changes that include requirements for removing and remediating permanently unused tanks and infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just sing something. Nice. My name is Malik McKenzie. I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club Oregon chapter and the thousands of members we have across the state, particularly those that are living in Portland. To start, the drawdown shouldn't be delayed, as even a parametric study that was used in justifying the drawdown amount and timeline shows that a drawdown could start now with minimal, if any, negative impact. And in light of the Cascadia subduction earthquake, we must do so. No one wants to be in a situation in which we sing the shoulda, coulda, woulda song, as my mother would put it when I was a child. Furthermore, The state fire marshal's community right to know database, which as previously stated, uses data from the corporations themselves, shows an average fill rate closer to 40%, not the 70% BPS has estimated. So we are now living in a reality in which corporations may engage in minimal drawdown, if any, because of the wide gap between what may actually be in those tanks and the amount BPS estimated. Furthermore, we should really be in line with Odo's 70% least cost pathway to electrification, 70% by 2050, sorry, long day. As there's really no excuse to deviate from that, given the issues. And because a lot was already said about the drawdown, I do want to talk about the transition because my background's in electrical engineering. Studies are showing that a swap to high voltage DC from AC can 3.5x, if not more, the amount of power we can transfer over existing transmission lines. In combination with distributed energy resources like solar with residential and utility scale backup, we're talking people having access to low cost power, which will be sorely needed after a magnitude 9 earthquake disrupts our ability to safely transmit power over our transmission line. And I would like to finish up by saying that the Eco Northwest study showed an economic impact north of $2.6 billion, when the state today is struggling to close a $2 billion shortfall.
You all. Hope you get to stand up soon.
Get there in a bit. We're going to invite the next three and then come back. So Doris Weller, Troy Winslow, and David Berger, if you're here. And then let's come back and see if Willie Levinson okay, Ronald Bossum, nope, okay. Hope Springs Eternal. We'll continue.
Hi, my name is Doris Weller. Commissioners, included in the amendments, a need to increase safety due to high risks from accidents and mishaps in the CEI hub should be considered. Living adjacent to the CEI hub in Linton, I have witnessed several potential catastrophic events due to accidents, employee errors, and bad judgment by the oil companies. I have seen a cascading waterfall of diesel fuel spewing out of the top of the fuel tank due to overfilling. A former fireman neighbor commenting, "We would probably not be here today if that had been gasoline rather than diesel." A painter's ladder falling into a gasoline tank, piercing the top of the floating lid of a tank, causing volatilization of gasoline, with the need to get that metal ladder out without creating a spark. A fire that needed to be extinguished by the fire department involving a fire prevention exercise at one of the fuel companies on their property between the fuel tanks. An accident involving listing logs from a passing train shearing several railroad cars storing diesel, igniting the cars that could not be extinguished but had to be put out. This occurred only a few minutes north of the Linton CEI hub, where volatile fuels are stored in tanks and railroad cars. In 2009, a fuel tanker truck ran off St. Helens Road, burning to the frame of the truck. It was next to an asphalt-laden railroad car and adjacent to the blue liquid natural gas tank. If that had been a very volatile railroad car of crude oil, such as now stored daily near the LNG tank, it would have been quite a different catastrophic scenario. According to the fire marshal, the LNG tank has a blast area of 1/4 of a mile. Everything within that 1/4 mile would be disintegrated. And, oops, I have some more, but I will do it. So the risk should be mitigated by BPS with a larger drawdown of stored tanks, moving the tanks to safer areas, and include financial assurances from the tank farm owners for future events that could occur for the lives of safety for all. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is David Berger. I was born and raised in Portland. I grew up on Skyline at Germantown, right above all of these tanks. I've grew up with them, I've lived with them, and I enjoy them. I've had a lot of family members that have worked there their whole careers and have retired from these facilities safe, happy, and retired. I represent Local 290, plumbers and steam fitters here in the state of Oregon. We have 5,500 members, which is 5,500 families across the state. According to the proposed draft, over 90% of the Oregon fuel comes through here. It passes through this hub. The statewide infrastructure necessary for this is not a Portland issue, it is a statewide issue. I live in Bend currently, have been there 26 years, and I have found that decisions made in Portland affect the whole state. And I'm afraid that a decision made here limiting the amount of fuel could limit the resources that make it outside of Portland into rural Oregon. We depend on that. UA Local 290 cannot support the draft as currently written. It makes a lack of realistic economic analysis regarding fuel prices, availability, and employment impacts, locally and regionally. To suggest the only economic impact would be the loss of jobs is an oversight. The premature, arbitrary 20% drawdown would cause a ripple effect, again, across the whole state. While I agree the seismic upgrades are vital for the community's safety, we believe the conversation should also include supporting at least a second terminal. In closing, I want to say thank you for listening to my testimony, supporting 5,500 families across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Troy? Do we see Troy? I'm not seeing him online. Okay, we'll come back. How about Santi Sanchez, Obi Hill, and Lynn Handlin? And on deck, Kate Murphy, Jan Zuckerman, and Richard March. Right, let's just give a minute for people to sit down. At your leisure.
Hello, good evening. My name is Santi Sanchez. I work as a climate and health coordinator for the Coalition of Communities of Color. We're an alliance of 20 culturally specific organizations working together to address disparities, advance health, justice, and self-determination for communities of color here in Portland and across the state. While we appreciate the proposed 20% drawdown, it is simply not enough to meaningfully reduce risks for neighboring communities, which include people of color, renters, and low-income families. A major incident at the CEI hub would expose these vulnerable communities to toxic smoke, causing long-term health problems and, of course, financial hardship. In addition to the real danger that the CEI hub poses on human health, the 20% drawdown by 2030 is not aggressive enough to be consistent with the Oregon Department of Energy strategy for 70% reduction at the of liquid fuel stored at the hub by 2050. This proposed draft states that it should be consistent with Portland's 2035 comprehensive plan's guiding principles, which some include human health, environmental health, and resilience. But as written, the proposed drawdown is not reflective of these principles. If the plan truly wants to center community resilience and health, it needs to put the people most at risk first. That means drawing down fuel faster, limiting transloading, and creating a concrete plan for protecting frontline communities. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to share today.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Handlin. I'm a small business owner in outer Southeast Portland. So-called renewable fuels are not real climate solutions and they blow up, burn, and generally endanger the community just like fossil fuels. Climate benefits are variable and limited at best, and expanding renewable fuels delays the necessary transition away from liquid fuels. More fuels equals more fuel use, equals more danger and climate harm. Renewable fuels are not, though some people refer to it sometimes, they're not a climate benefit, not a transition fuel. Natural gas, the greenwashing term for methane, was supposed to be transition fuel, which it so clearly is not, and that has landed us in a real pickle at this time. Let's not repeat that nightmare. Renewable fuels are generally not French fry grease. It's fuel made from various oils whose production result in deforestation and turning farmland for food to land to grow fuel, the most damaging type of farming. There's many other factors in the production and transport of so-called renewable fuels that limit or eliminate any potential climate impacts. The fuzzy reference to public benefit loophole in the plan is a loophole that you can drive a renewable fuel bomb train through. We must not allow Portland to become a renewable fuel regional hub, which is what some are wanting. It's a little scary. I'd really like to see all the city staff and electeds who have any connection with this issue to become more informed about renewable fuels. It's a complex subject, and incorrect assumptions can lead us further down the path to climate chaos and increased danger. There are many knowledgeable people in this room tonight that could help you with that. I'm also asking to please extend the time for written comments to mid-January. This is pretty complicated stuff, and we need a little more time. I think you all need a little more time. Thank you for the efforts made during this process to include community. I really do appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And do we have an OB Hill? Anywhere? Okay, we'll try to come back. Next up, Kate Murphy, Jan Zuckerman, and Richard March. And on deck, Jeff Rouse, Ann Turner, and Diana Richardson.
We good?
Great.
Thank you. My name is Kate Murphy. I'm a senior community organizer with Columbia Riverkeeper, and I appreciate the efforts to reduce harm at the CEI hub and encourage the commission to be proactive in taking the most protective actions possible, including reducing risks of accidents at the hub and reducing reliance on harmful fuels. The hub is already a daily risk to public health and safety. The geographical vulnerabilities in this area combined with the many types of potential disasters that could occur create a catastrophic risk that could destroy the lower Willamette and Columbia rivers, devastating keystone species that are critical for our region. It could have disastrous consequences for the health and safety of our communities and could create a toxic chemical cocktail that contaminates the land and our shared air and watersheds. We lack knowledge about the cumulative health effects of exposures to multiple contaminants via multiple pathways. Potential adverse health effects from these exposures are likely underestimated, and yet still they put every body system at risk with outcomes ranging from acute and chronic conditions to accidental injury and death. Given these risks, an aggressive science-based drawdown is necessary. It should start immediately and reduce fuel storage capacity as quickly as possible. To ensure a reduction, drawdown should be based on actual, not speculative measurements of average daily fill levels. Additionally, the drawdown schedule is based on a projection of fuel demand, which should not be the only consideration for achieving harm reduction. Serious loopholes within the proposal plan undermine a drawdown. If the goal is improving safety, we must be realistic about the dangers of these fuels. Any expansion allowance for transloading infrastructure is not in the interest of public health and safety. Positioning renewable fuels and sustainable aviation fuels as solutions is highly problematic and undermines the city's efforts and attempts to reduce risk at the hub. Industry greenwashing has been a public health threat for decades. We must not fall for the illusion of yet another bridge fuel that continues to endanger us and fails to address the core problem of our dependence on harmful fuels. Finally, we need a plan for a just transition to a low-carbon economy that protects tribal rights, frontline communities, workers, and the balance of fragile ecosystems over the profits for fuel industries. Thank you.
Before I start, I'm losing my voice, so bear with me. My name's Jan Zuckerman, Several years ago, a group of concerned community volunteers formed the CEI Hub Task Force. We reached out to over 40 neighborhood associations, sharing information about the hub from government sources. Most knew very little about the hub and did not hesitate to sign on to a letter asking local and state officials to take swift action to address the risks at the hub in a meaningful and measurable way. Fast forward to today. Again, we are meeting with neighborhood associations to update them on the process of risk reduction in the BPS policy draft. Community members across the city share the same concerns about the draft. If our city and state officials know it's a terrible idea to store flammable, combustible, toxic materials of any kind at the hub, then how can we propose 20% drawdown 10 years from now based on estimates, not site-specific data or measurable interim goals, protect public safety and lower risks at the hub? And what about the following 10 years and after that? Our community continues to shake its collective head in wonder at the lack of substantial policy now that draws down toxic, flammable fuels at the hub and addresses the day-to-day health risks. Years ago, standing on the bluff at U of P, looking down at the hub with Michael Pouncil, who sat on your board, I lamented on the mess we created, and he reminded me that the tanks haven't been here very long, and it won't take very long to dismantle them if we have the will to do so. The Willamette was once a braided river, an indigenous economic center. Today, Green Acres, a 7-acre eco-industrial park on the Willamette River, is a model of how our river economy can be vibrant and safe. Please ensure that this policy is free of false promises and loopholes so that in a time of despair, our children can remain hopeful for their future. And please extend the written testimony deadline to mid-January so our community members can deal with these complex issues. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Rick March from Southeast Portland. I'm pleased to say that I'm able to change somewhat what I had written after seeing Tom Armstrong's presentation. I was going to be demanding that there be strike-throughs of a lot of these distinct, of the distinction between renewable and fossil fuels, and I see that that has been accomplished, and the term bulk fuel has gone in. I support that and add my voice to keeping that in the plan. The other thing about it, though, is the constant use of the word fuel. It matters not whether these toxic, flammable, combustible substances are intended to be burned, hence a fuel, or to be used in any other chemical process. This creates loopholes potentially for things like so-called renewable naphtha, which is used in plastics, or ammonia that's used in refrigeration. So I would advocate for either striking fuels everywhere and adding the word substances, or just keeping fuels and other substances so that there isn't this loophole for things that are not intended to be burned. I think it's also very important that there are clear definitions of combustible, flammable, and toxic substances that already exist in the city fire code and in state statute. This plan should adopt those definitions. And in my written testimony, I enumerate the specific fire code and state statutes that this plan ought to use. Our goal must be a quicker drawdown and eventual elimination of the CEI hub. This peril to our city must end.
Thanks to everyone. Let's, what if we did a few more and then take a quick break? Sound good? Okay. All right. Jeff Rouse, Ann Turner, and Diane Richardson. And after that, we're going to take a very short break just to remember that we have bodies.
Are we ready?
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm Jeff.
My name is Jeff Rouse. I'm with a local energy providing company, family-owned here in Portland. We employ 600 employees throughout the state, and I also am past president of the Oregon Fuels Association. I will tell you, this has been, I don't think I've ever been in a meeting like this. It's very interesting. A lot of smart people here, but a lot of highly flawed data. So I'm not here, it's not about money, it's not about business, it's not about oil companies. We're not them, we're just a small company. But what I would like to speak to is that I've been heavily involved with the state on the Cascadia, energy resiliency, the safety, and I think Portland's being very short-sighted and letting a very few dictate this conversation, but this is really about your responsibility to the whole state of Oregon to ensure safety, since you are the metropolitan leader for the state. And that involves, making sure there's reliable fuel sources for families in rural areas throughout, all the way to the Idaho border, to the California border, Cave Falls. It's not just about Portland, it's about the state. And at some point, the state of Oregon is going to have a conversation about that, because as in my conversations with them, they're very concerned about fuel supply during the Cascadia. And a drawdown, all these numbers that are thrown out are like crazy. I mean, we had this issue with the Olympic pipeline. Portland has about 3 days of fuel supply. And this is the same fuel that all these people want to jump on a TriMet bus. They use 1 million gallons a month of this fuel that they don't want. So how does your bus run down the road? How does OHSU keep their generator on to keep all those lives? How does Legacy? You guys need to start thinking about public safety. I mean, a lot of the things that are being said are true about the health hazards and stuff, but the reality is we can't fix that overnight. But what we can fix is the fact that we have to make sure we have safety for the whole state of Oregon, not just for whatever Portland wants. I'm sorry the tank farm got built in Portland. Portland's the big metropolitan hub. It is what it is, but at some point you guys got to have leadership beyond just the city of Portland, and you got to start looking at the whole state and all the people that
Hi. Good evening. My name is Ann Turner. I'm a retired physician and a member of Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight on this critical policy and its impact on health and safety. I would like to add to Dr. Kullberg's comments about the fact that according to the EPA, North Portland is one of 13 communities in the country most overburdened with air pollution. In fact, the EPA launched an initiative to reduce the burden of pollution in northwest Portland by measuring levels of 5 volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, at the boundaries of 9 facilities within the CEI hub. Normal daily operations in the CEI hub generate significant amounts of VOCs, putting workers and neighboring communities at risk every day. Is benzene, which is unsafe at any level, causes blood cancers, and damages the nervous system. In fact, a 2024 study of 390,000 people in Great Britain found that for each measurable rise in the concentration of benzene in the air, there was a significant increase in death rates from all causes. Well, all of them irritate the eyes, nose, throat, and skin. They cause headaches, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. In fact, if you've ever spent any time in the CEI hub, you may have experienced some of these symptoms. I know that I have. Toxic air emitted at the CEI hub is a major health and safety issue. It's simple math. The more fuel in the hub, the more air pollution and the more risk to both health workers and neighboring communities. So I urge you to strengthen BPS's proposed draft into a policy that truly draws down the amount of fuel in the hub now, not 10 years from now, and prohibit adding fuel to the fire. Thank you.
My name is Gianna Richardson. I'm here to testify as a resident of Portland and of Oregon. I'm also a member of the CEI Hub Task Force. and have been astounded by how little residents of neighborhood associations have been even aware of this danger, which says to me there's been a failure of education on the part of the people who are responsible for making it known what we are facing. I thought I knew something about this, but sitting and listening to testimony today and listening to many experts, I have learned much more. If you are not terrified by the testimony of the geologist who talked about 10-foot movement, 10 foot of displacement of tanks, then, and if you are not terrified by aftershocks, as someone else has expertly spoken about, and if your hearts are not moved by the children and the adults, young adults in this room who are talking about their future, no amount of figures and facts that I could add to what has been said would move you. Of course, we care about businesses and families. That is why this must be focused on the future. Drawdowns, yes, the maximum. In fact, your obligation would be to hold to the highest possible level of health and safety. That should be your goal. And when looking at any solution, know that it lies today is what we'll see tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for mispronouncing your first name. Deanna, we're going to take, I'm going to say we're going to take a 5-minute break so that it is in fact 10. And we will reconvene at 6:17, but it's really going to be 6:20. Thank you.
Test. Okay, great. Okay, team, let us reconvene. Okay, and while we're coming together, team, I have glad tidings, because in order to respond to the testimony that we have received, we foresee the need for additional information to be entered into the record. Therefore, the record will be reopened on January 13, for additional written testimony regarding the new information provided. So, and you can thank BPS staff for that, because they saw it coming. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we shall continue. Thank you all. We're going to, next up, Alice Shapiro, Sarah Taylor, and virtually Katri Laukanen. And then on deck, Marnie Glickman, Margaret Butler, and virtually John Isaacs. I see a Sarah coming up. Do we have an Alice Shapiro? And I see Katri. And everyone is really packing a lot into 2 minutes. I'm just impressed and just deeply appreciative. Thank you all.
Hi, am I up? Oh,
How
no,
about
Sarah's
let's go with Sarah and then Katri.
Hi, my name is Sarah Taylor. I live in the CI Hub. I work with the Superfund, which is also in this same stretch of river, and also work with the Braided River Campaign. The Braided River Campaign's goal was to tell the stories and represent the people who live in North Portland day to day. So I would like to say, first of all, in terms of comprehensive planning, that I think that this plan needs to start with a stronger vision. So in the introductory sentence, I just want to say that is the vision to have a safe north reach, that whatever the vision is, I just think they need a stronger vision statement. And it may be whatever, but I think they need to have a much stronger vision statement related to health and safety. I also want to say, everything we worked on is not making the people where I live safe. So we're not safe. And 10 years is too long to make the people safe. So I have tried to think of practical things that could be embedded in the comprehensive plan that will make us safer today. One is it needs to be transportation in the CI Hub has to be embedded into the comprehensive plan. We need to have speed limits. We can't have it be a super highway. We need another traffic light or two. And if there's a bus stop where children get on and off buses, either TriMet or school buses, we need bus stops. So those are simple things that would give us some safety while you're working out everything else. The next thing I want to say is we have no fire engine on our side of the river, and I know that you closed down our fire station, but what I'm saying is put a fire truck or an ambulance on the other side of the river, or open up a fire station, or like Sovies Island, let us have a volunteer fire company. We asked and we were told we're not allowed to have one, but I think we could hook up a hose if we had to. The third thing that
That's your time.
Okay, sorry.
But sir,
I'll write it
please-
down.
Yeah, thank you. Please do so. Katri,
Hi, can you hear me?
could you speak? Could you speak?
You can hear me? Okay, so my name is Katri Laukkanen. I am a Linton neighborhood associate. I live here in Linton, right across the street from Northwest Natural and New Star with my family. I have 2 young kids and a mother-in-law. And we smell all summer long, or all winter long, I should say, fumes coming off of the CE High iHub. And my kids are sick frequently. I am an aquatic biologist. I teach aquatic biology and freshwater biology as well as general biology. And so my training as an aquatic biologist has really served me well in understanding what the risks are posed for the aquatic ecosystem in the Willamette River that flows into the Columbia River, that flows into the river or the ocean. So I joined the Coast Guard as a marine science technician right during the Horizon event, the Gulf Stream major catastrophe. What happens when petroleum products leak into aquatic environments is they kill all of the organisms that need oxygen. They create this anoxic environment. They have direct toxicity impacts on organisms living in the river and around the river. Different petroleum products behave differently. Some sink, some continue to weather and change chemically at the surface. But all of the impacts of the chemicals that are transported throughout Linton are undoubtedly going to have direct long-term impact should they enter into the aquatic ecosystem. And they will be felt for a very long time. And so I encourage you all to really think about how do we reduce some of the risk that natural disaster or human mistakes could cause in harming not only our health, but also long-term impacts on our ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for Alice. We will come back. Okay. Marnie Glickman, Margaret Butler, and John Isaacs.
I don't see Marnie. I'm Margaret.
We see Marnie online, actually.
Okay, good.
Just breaking news. Marnie, at your leisure. Marnie, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yep, go for it. Okay, how about, maybe Margaret, let's
I can't hear anyone.
Margaret, how about let's go with you and I'll text.
Okay. I'm Margaret Butler, and I'm a lifelong Portlander who helped build a garden on the railroad tracks at Zenith 6 years ago to bring attention to the dangers of increasing transport of volatile fuels. Some of us pled not guilty and went to trial, and 5 out of 6 Multnomah County jurors voted to acquit us because the harming done by the fuels industry to our climate and environment was worse than the harm done by our peaceful blockade. Over the last 6 years, thousands of community members and organizations have contacted elected officials with our concerns about safety at the hub. We organized, we rallied, we wrote letters, we showed up again and again, pushing for real change and safety for our community. Throughout the process around the Zenith Land Use Compatibility Statement in 2021 and 2022, it became clear to many of us that the comprehensive plan needed to be clarified and the language tightened. In the meantime, companies operating at the hub continued to expand. One example, in 2018, when Zenith started expanding its capacity, they told the city there would be no increase in throughput. That throughput has increased from 167 million gallons of fuel to 374 million gallons of fuel in 2022, and is projected in 2027 to be over 834 million gallons. You understand why we're concerned about the transloading and throughput issues. We have to close that loophole. The proposal you have before you came after the city heard from over 800 people saying that only drawing down the amount of fuel stored at the hub puts us on a path to a safer future. It needs to start now, not in 10 years. Time for business as usual is over. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Marnie.
Good evening. My name is Marnie Glickman. I am the Executive Director of the Braided River Campaign and a registered lobbyist. In the 1940s, the City Council brought Robert Moses, a New York City planner, to Portland, and the Chamber of Commerce and Robert Moses championed the idea of the Mount Hood Freeway. But Portlanders championed a different vision: strong schools, walkable neighborhoods, and a healthy environment. The people's movement resulted in the death of the Mount Hood Freeway and established Portland's global environmental leadership. We are in a similar moment right now. The CEI hub is a monstrosity like the Mount Hood Freeway, but much more costly. When the Deepwater Horizon oil rig exploded, 11 people were killed and nearly 134 million gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico. The legal settlement against the owners and the operators, including BP, which, by the way, owns one of our Portland bulk fuel terminals, was $20.8 billion, one of the largest environmental settlements in U.S. history. What could happen in Portland is far worse. CEI hub tanks can hold more than 370 million gallons of liquid fuels, more than twice the amount that's spilled into the Gulf. This isn't the way our CEI hub story will end, though. Commissioners, as you deliberate each element of this complex proposal, ask yourself how every word can protect the health and safety of Portlanders and future generations. How can we create immediate safety for our friends who live in the neighborhoods of Linton and North Portland? How many economic opportunities can we create with a swift drawdown and a just transition? Thank you, and please remember safety first.
Do we have John Isaacs? I'm not seeing, but we are seeing a Helena Barecki. I wonder if we can let them in, because it might be someone else. Thank you. Helena?
Hi, sorry about that. Great. So I really loved Marnie's comment and agree with it. We definitely need a just transition. Families with jobs in the CEI hub need good jobs in a cleaner economy, and just like the rest of us in this age where jobs are being decimated by AI and automation. None of this is happening overnight. We have 11 years until 2036, which is, as drawdown happens, new jobs, new, cleaner technologies are coming online. And so I want to really reinforce that. And then I want to speak specifically about the transloading infrastructure exception to the prohibition on new infrastructure. And it's not okay. Increased transloading infrastructure is going to increase health and safety risks to the community and likely cancel out the climate gains implicit in reducing storage capacity. You can make this better because the discussion draft talked about prohibiting new transloading infrastructure for all fuel types. We can't have, even though it sounds good to have the process that new infrastructure would be approved through a discretionary land use review with demonstration of clear public benefits, such as reducing risks associated with fuel. That's really a red herring for the allowance of new dangerous infrastructure because replacements and repairs are already allowed, entirely separate from anything new. They're allowed point blank. So we want repairs, definitely. Replacements may need to happen, but we can't have new transloading infrastructure. It defeats the purpose. Thank you.
And could you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Helena Barecki.
Okay, thank you. Could we next up Juno Suarez, Ryan Kennelly, and Santiago Nolasco Galicia. And then up after them, Douglas Larson, Theodora Holt, and Amy Rathfelder. All right. And at your leisure.
I'm Juno Suarez. Please keep the record open through mid-January. Now, let's talk economic prosperity. At the dawn of the last century, the CEI hub was called Guilds Lake. The floodplains were filled in to host the World's Fair. Posters with the slogan, "Hit the Trail," put Portland in the international spotlight, heralding big change from the horse carriage to automobiles. Again, it's a time of great technology transition. I'm concerned the tank farm, anchored in 20th century thinking, will become stranded assets, the superfund of tomorrow. We can talk about a 20% drawdown because it is indisputable. Oil and gas is in a structural decline. Midstream fossil operators retreat from uncompetitive old technologies, abandoning the tanks and leaving the public, that's you and me, to foot the cleanup bill. That's not prosperity, that's a liability. Instead, we could see this as a massive opportunity to value the green economy that we can build on this prominent land at the gateway to Portland. In the 20th century, fossil fuels were seen as the key to the economy. Not anymore. ECIU studies show that today, economies responsible for 92% of the global GDP have decoupled CO2 emissions from economic growth. A bold, creative, strong, bright economy, powered not from setting things on fire, but by embracing our greatest assets, the rivers, the wind, and the sun. That's not all. Human health, environmental health, equity, resilience. This can be a grand slam of our comprehensive plan principles. Send a policy signal that we will not accept the harms of the 20th century, but turn towards our shared and bright, prosperous future by telling oil and gas to hit the trail.
My name is Santiago Nolasco Galicia, a student at the University of Portland, appearing before you today as a climate policy assistant at 350 PDX, a local nonprofit made up of thousands of Portlanders concerned about climate change. The CEI Hub is Portland's premier climate and safety issue, especially from the viewpoint of my generation. As a student at the University of Portland, the threat posed by the CEI Hub is ever present. I, alongside thousands of concerned residents, especially those living in close proximity, are forced to live our lives while trying to ignore the dangers that this 6-mile stretch of toxic fuel tanks poses. To think that despite knowing about the dangers, our government has still negligently allowed toxic fuels right next to the river, an affront to our reputation as a climate-friendly city, was, when I first heard about it, an appalling realization that I come face to face with each and every day as I go to class right across from the hub. It is essential then that this policy project set into motion a proper plan that will at least begin to resolve this current and future problem. From the perspective of 350 PDX, we feel that the proposed 20% drawdown is a step in the right direction, but in need of significant revisions. Drawdown is a clear and objective measure with which the city can measure progress, but we must look beyond 2035. The project must include a complete outlined drawdown plan with phases that begin now and go beyond 2035, in line with our 2050 state emissions goals. We need clear requirements for industry compliance with a real transition away from climate-harming fuels. We find the proposed draft to be one step forward, two steps back. This draft still allows for review and expansion of transloading infrastructure so long as there is a public benefit. To make matters worse, the proposed drawdown is only from allowed storage capacity, not even from current levels of fuel stored there, so that it is unclear whether it will be much of a drawdown at all. What we do now will echo into the future. We must do the most we can to eliminate the clear economic, social, and environmental dangers of the CEI hub, the burden of which will be wholly upon me and my generation without change. There is always opportunity to do more, even within the specific scope of this project. The organizations speaking up today have engaged in a continuous stream of activism and rallying to show overwhelming community support for safer and healthier policies regarding the hub. Now is the moment to strengthen, to create the best scenario for our city, and to transform Portland into the resilient and green city that we wish it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Ryan Kennelly? Okay, we'll try to come back. Okay, Douglas Larson, Theodora Holt, and Amy Rathfelder.
I love being in a room where all of the advocates sound smarter than me. My name is Doug Larson. I've been with the Portland Harbor CAG for about 11 years now. Emergency management tells me that I won't be able to get out of my home on the Cathedral Park Bluff before a toxic cloud from the earthquake gets me, so I'm motivated. The representative from the Port of Portland spoke earlier mostly about convenience for the Port of Portland. However, it's probably the quickest way to draw down fuel storage in the CEI hub. They've got their own pipeline out to the airport. If they keep their storage in the CEI hub, the airport will be out of business as soon as the earthquake hits. But they have the ability to pipe all of that fuel out to a new dedicated tank farm at the airport, where they might be able to service the community after an earthquake. The airport is the biggest revenue maker for the port, but they can't spend airport revenue on anything except the airport. So they probably even have money aside from being a public entity. The other point I want to make is railroads, and who used to be Zenith, bringing unit-long oil trains through and into the city. The Railroad Board was organized along the lines of the Federal Reserve and the Post Office, where even the president can't tell them what to do. So the only tool you have to prevent mile-long oil trains from coming down the gorge and through the city is zoning and permits. And if you don't stop them there and take away their destination,
Teodoro?
Hi, my name is the volume okay? My name is Greg Bourget. I work as the lead researcher for Portland Clean Air and Cascadia Action for the past 10 years. I'm standing in for Theodora Holt, our executive director. with Cascadia Action. We work with 56 Portland Neighborhood Association boards, 16 churches and synagogues, and 9 other local groups to negotiate with industry. So far, about 4,000 local residents have donated money to our campaign. We've also been supported by a number of foundations. I've been working with the Linton Neighborhood Association Board for the past 7 years to study the CEI Hub. I'd like to read from the Oregon Seismic Safety Policy Advisory Commission 2019 report on the CEI Hub. Quote, if a Cascadia earthquake were to occur today, the CEI Hub after effects would be as devastating as the 2011 Fukushima nuclear meltdown in Japan. The thing is that the state of Oregon has preempted the city and county from acting on most of the issues relevant to the hub. The hub should be removed from its location and relocated onto bedrock, decentralized around the state, but only the state of Oregon can really make that happen. The city cannot make those trucks that they use have a filter. Even though we're in the worst 1% of counties for exposure to diesel particulate, according to the EPA's last national assessment. The city can't even use an idling ban because the state of Oregon has preempted even an idling ban. I applaud the commissioners for having an angle to get at this issue despite the preemptions. Another issue that the city could work with us on is the emissions coming from the facilities. So they're emitting benzene, ethylbenzene, toluene, and xylene, as well as enormous amounts of diesel particulate from their unfiltered trucks. And these emissions are very dangerous, so we purchased a $36,000 mobile spectrometer for diesel particulate monitoring. It's the best in the world. The Tiger XT, which is the best VOC monitor in the world. We've written some of the first software globally that can take this data and automatically GIS map it, so we have instant results from our monitoring. I invite the city to work with us. You've already funded us before to work with us on this monitoring because DEQ has systematically refused to monitor at the hub. I applaud the EPA effort, but the city could work with us to get real data. You could also help us write the study design and work with our scientists that were working with us to have a study.
Thank you. Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Amy Rathfelder. I'm here on behalf of Northwest Natural, and I'm a registered lobbyist. We're a state-regulated utility headquartered in downtown Portland, a few blocks from here, and we provide energy for more than 2 million people and thousands of businesses throughout Oregon and Southwest Washington. More than half our workforce is represented by OPEIU Local 11. We share your commitment to ensuring that critical energy infrastructure is resilient and safe. To get this right, any new policy framework must be grounded in accurate technical analysis and aligned with the rigor and direction of the state's seismic program currently underway. Carbon emissions for utilities like ours are also regulated at the state level. The CEI Hub is home to a Northwest Natural peaking facility, or a critical utility facility that holds cryogenic fuel, liquefied natural gas, or LNG. Our primary concerns regarding the current draft proposal are twofold. First, we are unclear how BPS or its consultant Parametrics addressed LNG-specific and utility-specific realities in the research for the draft proposal. For example, the assumptions in Appendix C regarding the Oregon Energy Strategy do not address winter peaking and affordability for our utility customers. Does BPS have an analysis on LNG and winter peaking needs available to share? Second, regarding seismic safety, the BPS proposal is duplicative and inferior to the state of Oregon's seismic stability program. What site-specific geotechnical and load analyses were used to determine a 20% reduction in fuel at the hub following the full implementation of the state of Oregon's mitigation work? These outstanding issues and many more unanswered questions make it hard for us and other operators to provide full comments on this draft proposal. In the absence of true energy and utility planning involving our state regulators and technical expertise, we're requesting an exception for Northwest Natural's facility at this time. We will expand on these and other concerns in our written testimony. Thank you for your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you all. Next up, we have Jana Jarvis, Benjamin Platt, and Jordan Lewis. And after that, on deck, Arthi Vijay Kumar, Laura Feldman, and Stephanie McBaron.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Janet Jarvis, President and CEO of the Oregon Trucking Association, representing over 500 trucking companies based in Oregon. There are over 105,000 trucking industry jobs in our great state, equating to 1 in 16 jobs in Oregon. As we saw recently during the pandemic, when we were all staying home, but the trucking industry was there bringing you your food, your medicine, and everything else you wanted, sometimes right to your front door, a healthy, functioning trucking industry is critical to Oregon's success. Over 3/4 of our communities in the state are only serviced by truck, and over 90% of our manufactured goods are transported by trucks. And while the industry continues to invest in newer, cleaner technology, also a fact that this industry is reliant on diesel fuel to move our nation's goods. In Oregon, the majority of commercial trucks are now powered by the newest generation of near-zero emission diesel technology, which removes 99% of diesel particulate matter. But we continue to depend on diesel to fuel our industry. Our concern with the proposal before us tonight is that there's been no significant economic analysis of supply and demand needs for the future. The CEI hub is the source for fuel for the entire state, and the premise that other communities could simply build their own fuel supplies ignores reality. It's located along the river where transporting the product is most efficient. The product can move by marine, rail, or via the pipeline located here. Additionally, as the transportation industry works to reduce emissions, limiting tank capacity as renewable fuels come into the mix doesn't compute. We need more, not less capacity to store renewable diesel as more capacity comes online. Our members are excited to move to renewables as product becomes available, but the transition period will require more tank capacity, not less. We look forward to working with the City of Portland. Thank you.
Excuse me. I haven't used my voice in a minute. Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Benjamin Platt. I'm testifying today to advocate for a safe, healthy, critical energy infrastructure hub. I'm a resident of inner Southeast Portland in District 3. While I'm happy to see some of the elements of the current proposed draft, the proposal overall doesn't adequately address the constant, enormous risks that the hub poses to our community, our climate, and our river as it stands right now. Our first priority needs to be public health and safety. The proposed reduction in stored fuel volume is a good step in the right direction, but it is too low and it is too slow. We need a phased drawdown that starts immediately, and the reduction needs to be much greater. The current drawdown percentage doesn't even reduce the volume of fuels below current fill levels, let alone match the goal of a 70% reduction in liquid and gaseous fuels at the hub put forward by the Oregon Department of Energy. We need an aggressive, scientifically grounded plan to reduce as much fuel storage capacity as we can, as quickly as possible. We also need a plan for a just transition to a low carbon economy built for the benefit of workers, frontline communities, tribal rights, and ecology that decouples the benefits of all of those communities from the profits of the fossil fuel industry. That means reducing the need for liquid fuels by investing in other modes of transit, decarbonizing our buildings, and electrifying our infrastructure. Sustainable aviation fuel and renewable liquid fuels are false solutions and corporate greenwashing that continue to kick the can down the road at the cost of our health and safety. This is a historic decision that will literally shape the landscape of our city for generations to come, for better or for worse. Please strengthen BPS's proposed draft into a policy that truly centers community safety and health and creates a brighter, more resilient future for Portland and for the state of Oregon. Thank you.
Forgive me, do we have Jordan Lewis anywhere? Okay, thank you all. I'll try to come back. We have Arthi Vijay Kumar, Laura Feldman, and Stephanie McBaron.
Awesome. Well, I'm Stephanie and I'm here, so I guess I'll just go right into it. Thank you so much, everybody.
So first of all, I'm with the climate side of things here. My name is Stephanie McBaron. I'm a member of the DSA, speaking in a personal capacity. Portland DSA, Portland Democratic Socialists, in case you were not familiar. So first, I would like to start by saying that I support the general sentiment that has been expressed by many of my colleagues here tonight. I support a more aggressive drawdown. I support a more immediate beginning of action on the reduction of capacity at the facility. I support limits on transloading infrastructure. I support targeted parameters for institutions at the CEI hub as opposed to a percentile across the board. And I support all of these things because I would argue that our economic dependence on oil and gas is a bubble. A bubble is something that grows. A bubble is something that one day must pop. And when it pops, it hurts. But the longer the bubble holds, the more the pop in the end will hurt, and the more people will suffer for it. None of the institutions who work at the CEI hub, besides Northwest Natural, have come here tonight to speak in person or send a representative because they feel rest assured that their economic importance means that they do not have to be held compliant to anything that this commission puts forward. They are confident that they can sit back, kick up their heels and say, you need us to heat your homes, you need us to fuel your cars, you need us to employ your engineers, and so we can do what we want, no matter the risk or harm that it poses to the people of this city. It is the primary responsibility of this commission to not merely institute these reforms to the CEI hub, but to break the political power that they hold over our city institutions by exploring alternative means of employing labor engineers, heating homes, and fueling trucks with things that are not reliant on burning destructive fuels and poison fumes. This is our number one priority. This is your top priority as a commission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have Laura online, and we have Arthi. Arthi, could we ask you to start, and then Laura?
Sure. Thanks for taking testimony tonight, and thank you everyone for your insightful testimonies. I'm also glad to see that a 20% drawdown of liquid fuels in the CEI hub has been proposed, but this is nowhere near enough of a drawdown to ensure public and environmental safety. A seismic incident in the area could lead to spills and contamination in the Willamette and Columbia rivers, explosions and fires in Forest Park, and release of harmful pollutants and toxic smoke, as many of our speakers have said before this. As drafted, this drawdown plan would not significantly reduce the risk posed by tank failure or ground failure in this area over the next 10 years. The Cascadia subduction zone megaquake has been referred to as the worst possible potential U.S. disaster by geological experts, and so we need to plan for it accordingly as a city. I'm an engineer by trade, and I'm concerned by the current plan. I urge you all to make the drawdown plan much more aggressive to reduce fuel storage capacity as quickly as possible and close any loopholes that would prevent drawdown from starting as soon as possible. Our community and our environment are depending on you. Thank you.
Thank you. And could you say your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Arthi Vijaykumar.
Thank you. Laura, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Laura Feldman. I was born and raised on the North Portland Peninsula and currently live in the Portsmouth neighborhood in the blast zone. I serve on the board of the Willamette River Advocacy Group, which oversees the EPA Technical Advisory Grant on the Portland Harbor Superfund cleanup site, the lower 11 miles of the Willamette River, which includes the critical energy infrastructure hub. I am speaking as a community member in response to BPS's proposed draft of the CEI Hub Policy Project, which does not include the threat to the massive, complex, and expensive cleanup, the planning of which began 25 years ago. The Yakima Nation, along with other tribes, were instrumental in getting the Lower Willamette listed as a Superfund site in 2000 and continue to push the EPA and others for full remediation. The physical cleanup alone will take 13 years and cost over $1 billion, which doesn't include the $12 million that both the city and state have committed to this cleanup, along with the in-kind labor, time, and expertise donated by community members during this 26-year planning period, all of which could be wiped out by a single hub accident. I urge the city adopt policy that mandates that any economic development on the river within the Superfund designation must not increase the dangers at the CEI hub and must prioritize a complete drawdown of the tanks before 2036, which according to some sources is already too late. We're in action to lock in severe catastrophic climate impacts. This is an emergency, not a can to be kicked a little further down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have up Michael Horner, Alex Bloch, Amy Lestat, and Jonathan Fink. Do we have a Michael in the house? Okay, let's go with Alexander Bloch.
Hello, my name is Alex Bloch. I am a Portland District 3 resident. I applaud the city for proposing a drawdown of liquid fuels, but I don't believe 20% by 2035 is enough. The CEI hub is located directly on the Portland Hills fault line, and much of the infrastructure was made without modern seismic standards. I am concerned that if an earthquake strikes, then the tanks will rupture, which will pollute the river, cause fires in Forest Park, and release harmful air pollutants like benzene and toluene that are disastrous to air quality and very harmful to people's health. By increasing the drawdown amount, we will reduce that catastrophic risk. Additionally, a 20% drawdown by 2035 is not aggressive enough to be consistent with the Oregon Department of Energy's strategy for a 70% reduction in liquid and gaseous fuels stored at the hub by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
Yes, we've been working on this for several years
Sorry,
now.
could you say your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Amy. We've been working on this for several years now, so I do not want to take up too much of your time here. I don't know why this is taking so long because we have known for years now that this is putting the community at risk and is in an earthquake zone. I don't think we can wait 10 more years, so we should get this done with. I stand with the other environmental experts and activists here. And of course, the most of all affected neighbors and the youth, because this does impact them the most. Our planet is sick, and so the city and county must act now to adopt any and all climate-forward policies. Human beings, plants, and animals, and the earth matter more than corporate interest. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have Willie Levinson? See him here. Ronald Bossum? Okay. Jonathan, forgive me. At your leisure.
Okay, thanks. My name is Jonathan Fink. I'm a geology professor at Portland State University. I first came to Portland in June 1980 to work on the consequences of the May 18th eruption of Mount St. Helens. These days, I study wildfire. Last year, I served on Governor Kotek's Fire 35 committee, seeking to establish sustainable funding for wildfire mitigation and response throughout the state of Oregon. I also headed a U.S. National Academy of Sciences panel last year on the future of wildfire in the West. And for the past 6 years, I've run a working group about wildfire and urban smoke in the Cascadia region. We've hosted over 120 webinars. The main conclusion from all of these presentations and reports is that the cities of the Pacific Northwest, especially Portland, are totally unprepared for urban conflagration when wildfire enters our city infrastructure. The CEI hub is one of the most dangerous sites in our region from the perspective of wildfire. Forest Park is a major wildfire risk that is only getting worse. Even a small fire could lead to ignition of the tanks in the CEI hub, with the disastrous consequences discussed by many of the previous speakers. I strongly support the city's efforts to bring down the levels of fuel in the tanks, but urge a much more aggressive reduction. Thank you.
Awesome. Do we have Troy Winslow? Don't see him here online. Obie Hill? Okay. Alice Shapiro? Not seeing it. John Isaacs? Ryan Kennelly? Jordan Lewis? Michael Horner? Anyone else? All right. And now, my friends, we are at last call. Is there anyone who has not had an opportunity to speak who wishes to do so before we close oral testimony? Going once? Going twice? Having been a former bartender, I almost want to have closing time playing, but I won't. Okay, thank you all for your participation this meeting. The oral testimony, the one truly non-renewable resource that we have as humans is time, and you have offered your time and your talent and your expertise in sharing your thoughts today. So I'm just very grateful to you all. The oral testimony on this item is now closed. The written record, as we said before, will remain open until this Friday, 5 p.m., December 19. Then it will close for a few weeks so that staff can collate, can distill. But in order to respond to the testimony that we have received, again, we foresee the need for additional information to be entered into the record. Therefore, the record will reopen, so it will close December 19th. It will reopen January 13 for additional written testimony regarding the new information provided by staff. Written testimony will then close again on Friday, January 23rd at 5 p.m. Staff will post the new information on the project website and send an email to the project subscription list and to testifiers to let them know how to access the new information. So if you are not already subscribed to news on this project, you can do so on Bureau of Planning and Sustainability's website. So you can be the first to know. The Planning Commission will discuss this project at least 2 more times. On January 20, 2026, at 12:30 p.m., the Commission will hold a work session on this item. There will be no oral testimony at the January 20 meeting, so your writing will come in very handy. On February 10, the Commission will discuss and possibly vote on any amendments and a final recommendation to City Council. Again, there will be no oral testimony at the February 10th meeting. And you can ask for any further questions are there any further questions, my fellow commissioners, before we have Lori?
It sounded like the testimony would close this Friday, written testimony this Friday, but then would reopen.
Correct. So again, the written testimony, the oral testimony is closed now. Boom, done. We have moved into a new phase. Here we are in this new world. We will continue written testimony through this Friday at 5 p.m. And then it will close and staff will collate. We'll look at the new information that we have based on that testimony. They will share new information on the project website. People will be will then, anyone who is subscribed to the project will then get notice. And on January 13th, the written record will reopen. So you'll have about 3 weeks in between to, do New Year's resolutions, whatever you'd like to do in those 3 weeks. So January 13th, it will open again, written testimony, and it will stay open for 10 days, and then on January 23rd, it will close. Can I get a thumbs up? We good? Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Lori. Any other questions, clarification? Last comments? Yeah, Commissioner Spivak, please.
So what does that mean for the timing of amendment ideas relative to the 2 closings of testimony?
Commissioners, Patricia Diefendorfer for the record. We're going to send the commission a detailed schedule with the times where we will provide information and the times where we will, the deadlines essentially that we will set for you, as we typically do, for you to give us any additional thoughts about questions you want to have addressed or ideas you have for amendments. So we're going to send you a follow-up email with that information.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. This agenda item is continued to January 20, 2026, Planning Commission meeting, which begins at 12:30 p.m. Again, thank you all. Please travel safe. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you. You were wonderful. Let's thank the Planning Commission. Herculean task, you guys, to sit there for this many hours listening to all of this testimony.